A billionaire, a broke waitress, one slice of birthday cake. What happens when the richest man in the city sits down next to a woman who can't afford tomorrow's rent, and neither of them knows it yet? This is not a fairy tale. Nobody rides in on a white horse. Nobody gets saved. This is a story about two broken people who almost walked past each other forever. Almost. If you've ever felt invisible, if you've ever sat alone in a crowd and wondered if anyone actually sees you, stay with me. Drop your city in the comments. Let's see how far this story travels. The morning of Emma Kingsley's 6th birthday started the way most important days do, quietly, without announcement, with no hint of what was coming. Adrian Kingsley woke at 5:43, 3 minutes before his alarm. He lay on his back in a bedroom that was too large for one person, staring at the ceiling, listening to the city begin to stir 17 floors below. Manhattan had a rhythm to it, a grinding, indifferent pulse that never stopped for anything. Not grief, not joy, not the particular weight that settled into a man's chest at 5:43 in the morning when he reached across the bed and remembered, again, that the other side had been cold for 4 years. He didn't reach across anymore, but his body still remembered. He sat up, rubbed his face, looked at his phone. 47 unread emails. 3 missed calls from Marcus Webb, his chief of staff, who was either a machine or a man without the capacity for sleep. Adrian had never been sure which. A reminder from his calendar, Emma's birthday. Park, 1 p.m. Do not reschedule. He had typed that last part himself. The caps lock had been intentional. He got up. The kitchen smelled like coffee and birthday cake, which meant Mrs. Calloway had already been there. Evelyn Calloway was 61 years old, built like a retired boxer, and had been with the Kingsley household since before Emma was born. She was technically a housekeeper. In practice, she was the person who made sure the whole operation didn't come apart at the seams. Emma was already at the table when Adrian came in, still wearing her pajamas, the ones with the little foxes on them, sitting very straight with both hands flat on the table, staring at the cake in the center of it like she was conducting some kind of silent negotiation. The cake was a lopsided thing with pink frosting and a fondant unicorn on top that leaned slightly to the left. Emma had requested it herself, from a bakery 3 neighborhoods over that had a 4-week wait list and was definitely not worth the price. Adrian had gotten on the wait list the week Emma mentioned it in passing, back in March, while she was eating Cheerios and watching cartoons. He had written it on a Post-it and everything. "Happy birthday, Bug," Adrian said. Emma looked up. She had her mother's eyes. She is gray-green, a color that changed depending on the light and the weather and whatever she happened to be thinking about. Right now, they were very serious. "I counted," she said. "Counted what?" "The candles. There are 7. Adrian looked at Mrs. Calloway, who was suddenly very focused on wiping down the counter. "We talked about this," Emma continued. She sounded less accusatory than genuinely puzzled, like she was working through a math problem. "I'm turning 6, Daddy. 6 candles. That's how it works." "I know, Bug. I think Mrs. Calloway may have gotten a little excited." "I am not taking the blame for that," Mrs. Calloway said without turning around. Adrian sat down across from his daughter. She was studying him now, with those gray-green eyes, and he had the familiar sensation of being assessed. Emma had been doing this since she was about 3, this quiet taking stock of people, this patient waiting to see what they were actually made of. He had no idea where she got it. Her mother had been the same way, though. Looking at Emma sometimes felt like looking at a photograph from a time he couldn't quite get back to. "We can take one off," he said. "You can't take a candle off a birthday cake. That's bad luck." "Who told you that?" Emma shrugged with the particular authority of a child who has decided a fact is a fact. "I just know." "Okay." He poured himself coffee. 7 it is. You'll just have to blow out an extra wish." "You only get 1 wish." "Then you'll have to share the extra candle with someone who needs one." Emma thought about this for a long moment, turning it over. "Okay," she said. "That's fair." The morning meeting started at 7. Adrian was in his office by 6:50, jacket already on, because the alternative was thinking about the fact that he was spending Emma's birthday morning in his office instead of what? What did fathers do on birthday mornings? He genuinely wasn't sure. He remembered his own birthdays only in fragments. A baseball glove once, a fishing trip to a lake in Vermont that rained the entire time, his father's hand on his shoulder while they sat in a diner somewhere, both of them eating pancakes, not talking, not needing to. He'd been good at the not needing to part. He was less good at the actual presence part. Marcus Webb was already inside when Adrian arrived, standing at the window with a tablet and the expression of a man who has bad news and has been rehearsing how to deliver it. Marcus was 37, 6 years older than Adrian, which meant nothing in practice since Adrian had been his employer for 4 of those years. He was thorough, relentless, and had the rare quality of telling Adrian the truth, even when Adrian hadn't asked for it, which was both his greatest asset and occasionally his most exhausting characteristic. Nakamura pushed the Seoul meeting to Thursday, Marcus said, which creates a conflict with the infrastructure review. Move the infrastructure review. It's already been moved twice. Move it again. Marcus typed something on his tablet with the quiet efficiency of a man who disagrees but has learned to pick his battles. The Caldwell offer came in this morning. It's 17% below where we need it. Tell them 18 and we walk. You know that's aggressive, yes. Tell them anyway. Adrian poured a second coffee from the carafe on the sideboard. What else? The Lighthouse Foundation wants confirmation on the spring grant allocation, and Marcus paused. The Tribune is running something this weekend about the Meridian Project. I don't have the specifics yet, but the journalist has been making calls. Adrian looked up from his coffee. What kind of calls? The kind that suggests they think there's a story about the environmental assessments. There isn't. I know that. You know that. But someone has been talking to them, and the talking has been specific enough that they're clearly working from internal documents. The room was quiet for a moment. Adrian set down his mug. Find out who, he said, quietly, and get me the full assessment report on my desk before noon. Already sent it to your email. Paper, Marcus. Marcus sighed very slightly. I'll have it printed. They went through the rest of the agenda in 18 minutes. Adrian was good at meetings, which he had always considered one of the more unfortunate facts about himself. That he was good at things that had no particular meaning outside of a glass and steel office tower. He was good at reading rooms, at finding the sentence that shifted the balance of a negotiation, at the particular kind of silence that made people nervous enough to fill the space with concessions. These were useful skills. They were not the kind of skills you wanted to be remembered for. At 11:15, he closed his laptop, took off his jacket, and went home to change. He was going to the park. He was not going to be late. Emma had changed into a yellow dress by the time he got back. She was sitting on the front steps of their building with Mrs. Calloway, holding the cake box. The bakery had given them the whole thing, on a board, in a pink box with a ribbon, very carefully in both arms like it was something irreplaceable. You're 7 minutes early, Emma said. I know. You're never early. I'm working on it. Emma considered this. Then she stood up and handed him the cake box. You carry it, she said. Your hands are bigger. Mrs. Calloway caught his eye over Emma's head. She didn't say anything. She had a way of communicating entire paragraphs with a look, and this particular look said, She's been waiting by that door for 40 minutes, just so you know. He knew. Let's go, he said. The park was one of the smaller ones, not Central Park, which was Emma's second choice, but Hartley Square, 12 blocks west, which had a fountain with frogs on it that Emma had loved since she was 3. She had a theory that the frogs were a family. She had named all of them. She explained the frog family to Adrian at least once a month, as though the information might have slipped his mind. It hadn't. They arrived at 12:40, which gave them 20 minutes before the informal birthday lunch they had planned. Just the two of them, sandwiches from the deli on Clement Street, cake on the grass, the particular luxury of a Tuesday afternoon with nowhere to be. Emma had requested this specifically. No party, no classmates, no restaurant. Just us, she had said, in the matter-of-fact way she had, and Adrian had thought, yes, okay, just us. The park was half empty in the way that city parks are on weekday afternoons. Dog walkers, a few mothers with strollers, an old man feeding pigeons with methodical dedication near the far gate. The fountain ran, The frogs looked the same as always. Emma pointed each of them out as they passed. That one's Franklin. That's Dot. That's Dot's baby. I haven't named it yet. And that's Gerald. She paused. Gerald looks different today. How so? Sad, maybe. Adrian looked at the concrete frog. It looked exactly like a concrete frog. We could bring him some cake, he said. Emma looked at him with the tolerant patience of a child who has decided her father is slightly obtuse but fundamentally well-meaning. He's a statue, Daddy. Right, of course. They found a bench near the fountain, spread the paper bag of sandwiches between them, and the afternoon began to settle in the way that good, unremarkable hours do, gently, without ceremony. Emma ate half her sandwich and 3/4 of her pickle. She told him about her friend Rosie at school, who had gotten a hamster and named it Tornado, and about the book her teacher had read them last week about a bear who couldn't sleep, and about how she thought it was unfair that bears got to hibernate because she thought she would be very good at it. Adrian listened. He was good at this part, actually, at listening to Emma. It required nothing from him except his full attention, which was also the thing that was hardest for him to give to almost everyone else in his life. At some point, Emma stopped eating and went quiet. Adrian watched her gaze drift to the left, past the fountain, toward a bench maybe 30 feet away. Daddy? Yeah. That lady looks sad. He followed her eyes. The woman on the bench was perhaps 30, maybe a year or two younger, sitting with her knees together and her hands folded in her lap, and a canvas tote bag at her feet. She was wearing clothes that had been washed many times. A gray cardigan with a small fraying hole at the elbow, dark jeans, shoes that had started their life as something nicer. She wasn't crying. She wasn't doing anything, actually. She was just sitting there in the particular way that people sit when they don't have anywhere to be, and that's not a luxury, but a circumstance. Her face, he could see it in profile, a clean jaw, dark hair pulled back carelessly, had the look of someone who had spent the morning absorbing blows that left no marks. I think she might just be resting, Adrian said. She hasn't moved in a really long time. That's what resting looks like. She looks hungry too. Emma. But Emma had already climbed off the bench. She was picking up the pink box. We have extra cake, Emma said, in a tone that suggested this was all the argument necessary. Bug. He was standing now. You can't just walk up to strangers. Emma turned and looked at him. It was the same look she had given him this morning over the birthday candles. Patient, a little puzzled, genuinely working through his logic and finding it insufficient. Why not? She said. He opened his mouth. He thought about it. Stay where I can see you, he said. Emma nodded and walked over. She had been sitting there for 2 hours. Lily Harper had nowhere else to go, and that was not a dramatic statement. It was a logistical one. Her apartment was 14 blocks east, which she could walk to, but walking there meant sitting inside it, and sitting inside it meant thinking about the certified letter she had gotten from her landlord yesterday, and the notice from the electric company from last week, and the total in her bank account that she had checked 3 times this morning, each time hoping the number had somehow changed in her favor. It hadn't. The job interview had been at 9. The position was at a hotel restaurant in Midtown, not glamorous but real, with benefits, with 38 hours a week and a manager who supposedly didn't scream. She had taken 2 buses to get there. She had worn the blouse she kept specifically for interviews, the blue one with the small buttons that she ironed carefully the night before. She had prepared answers. She had printed her resume on actual paper from the library. The hiring manager had looked at her resume, looked at her, and said, "We were actually hoping for someone with fine dining experience." "I've worked in restaurant service for 7 years," Lily said. "Right, but fine dining specifically." The job posting had not specified fine dining. She had smiled and thanked him for his time, because that was what you did, and she had taken the 2 buses back, and she had gotten off 4 stops early because the bus had been very crowded and she had needed air, and she had ended up in this park, and she had sat down, and she had been here ever since. The thing about a certain level of broke is that it gets inside your head in ways that aren't just about money. It's the way you start to calculate everything. The bus fare versus the walk, the coffee you didn't buy, the sandwich you split into 2 meals. It's the way you start to feel like you're always slightly behind, always catching up to a life that keeps moving the goalposts. And after a while, the math stops being just math and starts being something else. A low hum of shame that you carry around with you everywhere, that makes you feel like the problem is not your circumstances, but you, specifically, some fundamental deficiency in yourself that other people can see. And that explains everything. She was sitting with that hum when the little girl appeared. She was maybe 5 or 6, in a yellow dress, holding a pink bakery box in both arms with tremendous seriousness. She had curly dark hair and gray-green eyes, and she walked with the absolute purposefulness of a child who has made a decision and is carrying it out. "Excuse me," the little girl said. Lily looked up. "My name is Emma," the little girl said. "Today is my birthday. We have extra cake, and I thought you might want some because you look sad and sometimes cake helps." Lily stared at her. "It's a unicorn cake," Emma added. "The unicorn leans a little, but it still tastes good." Lily looked past Emma to the man who had appeared a few feet away, hanging back, not intruding, hands in his pockets. Tall, dark hair, slightly overgrown. He had the cautious body language of someone who had tried to stop this from happening and had accepted that he couldn't. She looked back at Emma. The thing about Emma's offer, about the way Emma said you looked sad and sometimes cake helps, was that it wasn't pity. There was no performance in it, no careful management of distance. It was just straightforward, clear-eyed observation and response. "You appear to be in need of something. I have that thing. Here." Lily's throat did something complicated. "I don't want to take your birthday cake," she said. "You're not taking it," Emma said. "I'm giving it. There's a difference." Lily laughed. She hadn't expected to laugh. It came out a little rough and ungraceful, but it was real. "You're very smart," Lily said. "I know," Emma said, without any particular ego. "Do you want some or not? My arms are getting tired." But the man came over when Lily accepted a slice. He introduced himself as Adrian, in the slightly careful way of a person who is accustomed to their name having a reaction and has decided to give it quietly, without ceremony, to see what happens. He sat at the far end of the bench, leaving space, not crowding her. Emma sat between them with her feet dangling off the edge and her own slice of cake balanced on her knees and a look of clear satisfaction on her face, like someone who has successfully completed a project. "I'm Lily," Lily said. "I know, Emma told me," Adrian said. Then, "She didn't, actually. I'm just... sorry. I'm not great at this." "At what?" "Talking to new people outside of specific contexts." "What kind of specific contexts?" He thought about it. "Boardrooms, mostly." Lily looked at him. He had the kind of face that gave nothing away easily. Good-looking in an angular, slightly tired way, with dark eyes that were observant without being intrusive. His clothes were expensive in a way that wasn't showy, which she had learned to notice because she had waited tables long enough to understand the difference between someone who had money and someone who wore it like armor. This man wore his like he'd mostly forgotten about it. "Are you a businessman?" Emma offered helpfully. "That's what Daddy does. He goes to meetings." "A lot of meetings?" Lily asked. "So many," Emma said, with the gravity of someone reporting a natural disaster. Adrian looked faintly pained. "I work in development, real estate, infrastructure, that kind of thing." He glanced at Emma. "And apparently I go to too many meetings." "You do," Emma confirmed. Lily ate her cake. The frosting was the aggressively sweet kind, the kind that came from somewhere that took frosting very seriously. The unicorn's horn was pale gold and had survived transit intact. "This is genuinely the best birthday cake I've had in a while," Lily said. "It's from Murray's," Emma said, "on Baker Street. They have a wait list." "I know it," Lily said. "I walked past it once." "You've never been inside?" Lily thought about how to answer that. "Not yet," she said. Emma accepted this. She ate her cake. Then, "What do you do?" "Lily." She almost said I was a waitress because the morning was still very close, the interview still very recent. But she said, "I'm between jobs at the moment." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm looking for the next one." Emma considered this with the careful attention she seemed to give everything. My daddy says finding the right thing takes longer than finding just anything, she said. And that's okay. Adrian cleared his throat. I didn't say that to you. I said that to Marcus. And you were supposed to be asleep. I wasn't asleep. I know that now. Lily smiled. Really smiled this time. Not the careful, managed kind. The air between the three of them shifted slightly, the way it does when people relax into each other without meaning to. What kind of work are you looking for? Adrian asked. His voice was neutral, genuinely curious, without the particular inflection that people sometimes used when they were positioning themselves to offer something. Restaurant, hospitality, that's what I know. She looked at her hands. 7 years of service, and she still sometimes noticed the phantom weight of a tray. I had an interview this morning that didn't go the way I'd hoped. What happened? She told him briefly, without the self-pity she'd been fighting off since the bus. Just the facts. The posting, the interview, the fine dining specifically, the thank you for your time, the bus home. Adrian listened. He didn't say that's terrible, or I'm sure something better is coming, or any of the other things people said when they didn't know what else to do with someone else's difficulty. He said, that's a bad faith job posting. They should have been upfront about what they wanted. Yes, Lily said. They should have. Were they at least apologetic about it? No. That's worse. Yes, she said again. It is. There was a pause, not an uncomfortable one. For what it's worth, Adrian said, 7 years of service experience in different environments is more useful than 7 years in one very controlled setting. The fine dining argument is usually about gatekeeping, not actual skill. Lily looked at him. You sound like you know the industry. I've invested in enough restaurants to know how they think, and I've seen enough hiring decisions to know when they're about the right person and when they're about something else entirely. Usually something else, Lily said. Usually, he agreed. Emma, who had been listening to this exchange with patient interest, decided it had reached a natural pause. We have sandwiches too, she said. Do you want one? We have turkey. Lily started to say no. The automatic refusal, the one that had become a reflex over years of calculating what she could and couldn't accept. But she stopped herself. She was very hungry. She had not eaten since last night. Yes, she said. Thank you. I'd really like that. They ate lunch together on that bench for an hour and 20 minutes. Later, Adrian would try to account for why he stayed. He had a conference call at 2:30 and a stack of documents to review. Emma's birthday afternoon didn't require a stranger on a park bench. The conversation could have ended pleasantly and briefly and left everyone with nothing more than a small, nice story to remember. He stayed because Emma was happy, which was the easy answer. He stayed because it had been a long time since he'd had a conversation that didn't have anything underneath it. No negotiation, no positioning, no careful management of what was and wasn't revealed. Lily Harper talked the way people talked when they weren't performing. A little wry, a little frank, with the particular humor of someone who has learned to find absurdity and difficulty because the alternative is worse. She told them about a regular at her last job, a man who had ordered the same meal every Tuesday for 3 years and left the same tip every time, exactly 19%, which she had calculated to be intentional because no one got to 19% by accident. She told them about the summer she'd lived in Seattle briefly, working at a fish market, and the specific personality of Pacific Northwest rain, which was different from East Coast rain in ways that were hard to articulate but real. She asked Emma about the frog family and the fountain, which Emma explained in full and detailed chronological order, including the disputed backstory of Dot's baby. I think it might be Gerald's, Emma said, but I can't confirm. The parentage is still under investigation, Adrian said. Very sensitive case, Lily agreed. Emma looked between them with evident approval. Adrian talked too, more than he usually did, which he noticed without quite being able to stop. He told them about the infrastructure project in Ohio that had involved a 3-month negotiation over a single access road that turned out to matter more than anyone had anticipated. He told them about the time Marcus had accidentally CC'd the wrong party in an email containing a fairly candid assessment of their negotiating strategy, and the 4 hours that followed, which had been among the most educational of his professional life. He did not talk about who he was exactly, not the scope of it, not the numbers, not the name that tended to change the room. He just talked. And Lily listened with the focused, genuine attention that some people have. The kind that makes you feel like what you're saying is actually interesting, not just because they're being polite, but because they're actually there with you. At some point, Emma fell asleep against his arm, her small head tilted to the side, the cake box sitting on the grass beside her feet. Adrian and Lily sat quietly for a moment. "She's extraordinary," Lily said softly. She meant it. "She is," Adrian said. "She's the best thing I've done." Lily watched the fountain. Franklin. Dot. Dot's baby. Gerald. "She said it's just the two of you," Lily said. She said it neutrally, making room for him to not answer if he didn't want to. "Her mother died," Adrian said. 4 years ago. Illness." He paused. "Emma was 2. She doesn't have a lot of memory of her." "That's..." Lily stopped. She didn't say "I'm sorry" because it wasn't inadequate exactly, but it was also not what he had said, which was a fact about his life. "Is that hard? That she doesn't remember?" He was quiet for a moment. Emma breathed softly against his arm. "Sometimes I think it's easier for her," he said. "And then I feel guilty about thinking that." He looked at the fountain. "And then I think she'd understand. Sarah would understand." He caught himself. Used the name, which he almost never did in conversation, not because he had forgotten it, but because sometimes saying it out loud still cost him something. Lily didn't make it a moment. She didn't emphasize it. She just said, "She sounds like she was practical." "Extremely," Adrian said. It was one of her most inconvenient qualities. Lily smiled. Emma shifted in her sleep and made a small sound that might have been a word, something that started with an F. Gerald, possibly. Or Franklin. You should probably go, Lily said. "You mentioned a 2:30 call." "I pushed it." "When?" "About 40 minutes ago." He glanced at his phone. "Marcus will have opinions." "Marcus sounds like he has a lot of opinions." "He's very talented, and I am not ungrateful for it." He said it the way you say things about people you genuinely appreciate and are sometimes also exhausted by. Lily stood and gathered her canvas tote. Adrian watched her do it. The small economy of a person who is careful with their things because they matter. She folded the paper napkin. She put the empty wrapper from her sandwich in the bag. She straightened. "Thank you," she said. "For lunch. And for this." She gestured at the afternoon, which didn't quite cover it, but they both understood what she meant. "Emma will be insufferable if I take credit for it," Adrian said. That was all her. "Tell her thank you then." Lily adjusted the strap of her bag. "I mean it. I came to this park in pretty rough shape today, and somehow..." She stopped. "It helped. That's all." "I'm glad," he said. She started to go. She had taken maybe 5 steps when she stopped and turned back. "Happy birthday, Emma," she said quietly, to the sleeping girl. Emma didn't stir. But Adrian watched her daughter's face and thought, maybe he imagined this, probably he imagined this, that the corners of her mouth moved just slightly upward. He walked Emma home at 4:30, the pink box tucked under one arm, his daughter's hand in his other. She had woken as Lily was leaving, blinked, looked around, looked at the space where Lily had been. "Did she go?" Emma asked. "She did." Emma considered the empty bench for a moment. Then she looked up at her father. "Did you get her phone number?" Adrian looked down at his daughter. "No," he said. "I didn't." "Daddy." She said it with the patient exasperation of someone who has watched an obvious thing be missed. "You're supposed to get the phone number." "She was just someone we met in the park, Bug." "She was nice." Emma said it simply, without elaboration, the way she said things she considered obvious. "And she was sad, and we made her less sad." She looked up at him again. "Don't you want to know if she's okay?" He didn't answer that. They walked home. Marcus called at 5 and had opinions, as predicted. There were 3 contract amendments waiting on his desk, and the Meridian situation was developing in ways that would require attention. The apartment filled with the quiet sounds of an ordinary evening, Emma's bath, her bedtime story. She chose the bear who couldn't sleep, which felt thematically appropriate. The particular silence that fell after her light went off. Adrian sat in the kitchen with a cup of coffee that went cold. He thought about a woman with a fraying hole in the elbow of her cardigan, sitting very straight on a park bench, folding a paper napkin with careful hands. He thought about the way she'd said, "I came to this park in pretty rough shape today." He thought about the way she hadn't said anything else after that. Just, it helped. He thought about Emma asleep against his arm, and the name he had said out loud without meaning to, and the fact that Lily hadn't made it a weight that he then had to carry. He picked up his phone, put it back down. He didn't have her number. He didn't know her last name. He knew she had 7 years of service experience and a blue interview blouse she ironed the night before, and a theory about Pacific Northwest rain. He knew she'd looked at that birthday cake like it was the kindest thing she'd seen in a while. He picked up his phone again, set it down again. He was 32 years old, and he had built a company worth more money than most people would see in their lives, and he had a 6-year-old daughter who was smarter than him, and he had sat in that park all afternoon without checking his email, which was unprecedented. And he did not know what any of that meant. He just knew the bench had felt different after she left. He finished his cold coffee. He went to bed. And he lay on his back in the too large bedroom in the too quiet apartment, staring at the ceiling, listening to the city hum 17 floors below, and thought, Emma was right. He should have gotten the phone number. Down. Lily got home at 5:15. The apartment was small, and it held the particular still air of a place that had been empty all day. She put her keys on the hook by the door. She set her canvas tote on the chair. She did not look at the certified letter on the kitchen table. She sat on the edge of her bed. She thought about a little girl in a yellow dress with a lopsided unicorn cake and the absolute confidence of someone who saw a problem and simply solved it. She thought about the way the afternoon had felt. Not like rescue, nothing so dramatic as that. Like an interruption. Like the day had been going one way, steadily and badly, and then there was a bench and a slice of cake and an hour that just existed, apart from everything. She pulled the tote toward her and reached inside and found, at the bottom, beneath her resume and her cardigan and her folded bus card, a paper napkin. She looked at it. She didn't remember putting it in her bag. She thought she must have done it without thinking, when she was cleaning up, the same automatic tidiness that had become habit. She unfolded it. There was nothing on it, just a napkin. She held it for a moment. Then she put it down, very carefully, on her nightstand. She didn't think about why. She didn't need to. She lay back and looked at her ceiling, which was nothing like the ceiling of a 17th floor apartment, but was hers, and thought about a little girl who had said, "You looked sad, and sometimes cake helps." For the first time in a long time, Lily Harper fell asleep without running numbers. And outside, the city did what the city always did, moved and breathed and churned and turned, completely indifferent to the fact that 3 people had shared a bench and a birthday cake on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. Completely indifferent, and entirely responsible for what came next. The certified letter had a deadline. Lily had known this, technically, since she received it, had read the date twice very carefully, the way you read something you're hoping to have misunderstood. She hadn't misunderstood. 14 days from the date of notice, which meant she had 11 days left, which meant she had 11 days to produce an amount of money that currently existed nowhere in her life in any form. Not in her checking account, not in a savings account she had stopped being able to contribute to 8 months ago, not in the slim possibility of borrowing from someone who had it to spare. Her mother was in Phoenix and had her own version of this problem, just with a different set of numbers. Her friend Dara worked at a nonprofit and was generous in the ways that mattered, but not in the ways that involved cash. There was no one else on her list who wouldn't make the asking of it complicated in ways that would outlast the debt. She had done the math 6 different ways on Tuesday night. The math kept arriving at the same answer. Wednesday morning she woke early, before her alarm, with the particular alertness that comes not from rest, but from a body that has run out of the capacity to stay unconscious under pressure. She showered. She ironed the blue blouse again because there was a job posting she'd found the night before. A catering company in Chelsea, looking for experienced floor staff, $15.50 an hour, which was not enough but was real and immediate and accessible. And she had sent her application at 11:43 p.m., and received an auto reply saying they would reach out to qualified candidates. She made coffee with the last of the grounds in the tin. She sat at her kitchen table with the certified letter and her phone and a notepad she used for calculating tips, and she made a list. It was not a list of options so much as a list of facts arranged in a column, which was different, but sometimes making the list was the only thing that kept everything from becoming a shapeless mass of dread. Rent, overdue by 22 days. Electric, past due. Credit card minimum, late. Groceries, 9 days of reasonable eating if she was careful. Phone bill, 5 days before disconnection. She wrote each thing down in her clear, small handwriting. She looked at the list. She crossed out groceries and wrote it again at the bottom, below the phone bill, which was a small and irrational act of reprioritization that made nothing better and somehow helped anyway. She got dressed. She went out to look for work. The catering company didn't call. She applied to 4 more positions by noon from the library's computer lab, one of which required a skill assessment she completed in 12 minutes, a multiple-choice test on hospitality protocols that was clearly designed for people who had never actually worked a service shift in their lives. She passed it. She received another auto reply. She walked to a restaurant on 9th Avenue that had a paper sign in the window. Experienced servers wanted. Apply within. The manager was a man named Dale, who looked at her resume with his head tilted slightly, the way a person tilts their head when they've already decided but want to appear deliberate. "We're actually looking for someone who can commit to Friday and Saturday nights guaranteed," he said. "I can do that," Lily said. "And you'd be okay with the commute from—" He glanced at the address on her resume. "Where you're at." "It's not a problem." He nodded slowly. "We're still reviewing applications. We'll be in touch." She thanked him for his time. She went to 2 more places. One had already filled the position that morning. The other wanted someone with a car, which the posting had not mentioned. She ate lunch on a stoop outside a bodega, a banana and a packet of crackers, $1.87, because she had stopped buying coffee out 3 weeks ago, and she was trying to make the numbers work in the small ways available to her. The sun was out, and the street was loud, and the city moved around her with its usual total indifference, which was almost comforting in the way that large, indifferent things sometimes are. The city wasn't against her, it just didn't care either way. She thought about the park. She thought about it more than she had intended to, through the whole long Wednesday, in the in-between spaces. On the bus, waiting, walking. Not about Adrian specifically, or not only. Mostly about Emma, about the particular directness of her, the complete absence of performance in that little girl's decision to pick up a cake box and walk across a park and offer it to a stranger. Emma hadn't weighed it, hadn't considered angles. She had seen something that seemed wrong, and had addressed it with the tools available. It was a very simple thing. Lily was aware of how simple it was. She was also aware that simple things had a way of landing hardest. By Thursday, she had 2 more applications out and 1 callback. A breakfast place in the village that needed someone for weekday mornings, 6 to 2, which was fine, which was more than fine, and she had spoken to a woman named Patricia who sounded tired but decent and had asked good questions and seemed to actually listen to the answers. Patricia said she'd be in touch by Friday. Lily walked home from that call feeling something cautious and fragile that she didn't want to name yet. She stopped at the corner store. She bought coffee grounds because she had decided she was allowed coffee. She got home and found that her downstairs neighbor, Mrs. Osei, had left a container of jollof rice outside her door with a post-it note that said, "I made too much." Mrs. Osei always made too much. Lily had come to understand that "I made too much" was Mrs. Osei's particular language for something she would never say directly, and she had stopped pretending she believed it and just started saying thank you, because that was what you did when someone saw you and didn't make it a transaction. She ate the jollof rice at her kitchen table. She did not look at the certified letter. On Friday, Patricia did not call. Lily sat with her phone on the table beside her, doing everything except watching it. She reorganized her closet. She cleaned the bathroom with the focused thoroughness of someone who needs to be doing something with their hands. She rearranged the kitchen shelf. At 4:15, she picked up her phone and looked at it and put it down and told herself, by 5, by 5:30, by 6. At 6:45, she looked at the amount in her bank account, which had not changed in the way she had hoped, and she got out her notepad and she started working through the numbers again from a different direction, to see if there was an arrangement she had missed. There wasn't. She put the notepad down. She sat very still for a while in the way that she had sometimes, when the weight of the situation fully arrived and there was nothing to do but let it. It wasn't panic exactly, it was something heavier and quieter, a settling, like sediment after a disturbance, everything dropping to the bottom and settling into its actual shape. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost let it go. She picked it up. Is this Lily Harper? Yes. This is Adrian Kingsley. A pause. We met on Tuesday in Hartley Square. My daughter gave you birthday cake. Lily sat up very straight. I know who you are, she said. And then, because the sentence sounded almost accusatory when it didn't mean to, I mean, yes. Hi. Hi. Another pause. She heard what might have been traffic behind him. I hope this isn't... I tracked down your number through a mutual contact, which sounds worse than it is. I know a staffing coordinator who has a broader network than most, and I described the situation. And she found a contact who knew of you through the service industry, and... He stopped. This is coming across as though I've been following you. Has it been more than 48 hours since we met? It's been 3 days. Then you've been following me for 3 days. I've been trying to find a way to reach you for 3 days, he said, with the careful specificity of a man who considers the distinction meaningful. There's a difference. She nearly laughed. Something in her chest shifted. Just slightly, just enough to change the pressure. How did you find my number? She asked. He explained it again, more linearly. The staffing coordinator was a woman named Rosa Chen, who had worked with the Kingsley Group on a hospitality project 2 years prior and maintained connections throughout the industry. Rosa had heard Lily's name through a manager at a catering firm, not the Chelsea one, a different one, who had interviewed her some months back and kept her information because she had been, in his words, clearly overqualified for what we had at the time. Overqualified, Lily repeated. That was the word he used. I've been turned away for being underqualified for 2 positions this week. The industry is not consistent, Adrian said. That's been a consistent observation. She was quiet for a moment. Outside her window, someone on the street was arguing cheerfully with someone on the phone. The sky had gone the orange-purple of early evening. Why did you look? She asked. For my number. He didn't answer immediately. She could hear him thinking, which was unusual. Most people filled silences faster than that. Emma asked about you, he said finally. On Wednesday morning, at breakfast, she wanted to know if you'd found a new job. What did you tell her? I said I didn't know. She seemed unsatisfied with that answer. She seems like someone who doesn't accept unsatisfying answers. She gets that from... He stopped. She's just always been that way. A brief pause. She also said, and I'm quoting directly, that I should have gotten your number when I had the chance. Lily was quiet. She was right, Adrian said, simply, like a fact. That's not... Lily started and then stopped, because she wasn't sure what she was trying to say. That's not why you should have gotten it didn't come out right. That's not what I assumed came closer, but still wasn't quite it. I also thought about it, he said before she had to finish. After you left, I sat in that park for another 20 minutes thinking about it, and then I walked Emma home and I thought about it some more, which is not... Another pause. I don't do that, generally. Think about things? Think about conversations after they've ended. I'm usually... A short exhale. Work tends to fill in everything quickly. But not that time. No, he said. Not that time. Lily looked at the notepad on her kitchen table, the column of numbers, the certified letter. She was aware of a peculiar sensation. The afternoon in the park had felt like an interruption of her regular life, an hour that existed outside the normal order of things. This phone call felt like the interruption refusing to stay contained. So, Emma sent you, she said. Emma is 6. That wasn't a denial. She asked about you, Adrian said, and she could hear something that might have been the beginning of a smile in it. I did the rest. She was quiet again, then, I'm still looking, for work, if that's the question. It wasn't, but I'm glad you said it. He paused. Actually, and you can absolutely tell me this isn't your business, or that the timing is strange, or any of several other reasonable objections. But I have a contact at the Harlow Hotel Group. They're opening a new property in the spring and staffing up their restaurant operation. The front-of-house director is someone I know professionally, not closely, but well enough that a call from me carries weight. I can make that call if you want me to. No strings, no expectations, just, Rosa said you were overqualified for what you'd been applying to, and I thought it was worth mentioning. Lily sat very still. She had been in service long enough to know the shape of an offer that came with obligations attached, the particular quality of generosity that was actually a form of leverage. She had also been in service long enough to know the difference between that and something else, something that was actually just what it said it was. She tried to read which this was. It was hard over the phone. She was better at reading people in person. "Why?" she said. "You don't know me." "I know you spent your birthday afternoon." He caught himself. "I know you spent Emma's birthday afternoon talking to us and didn't make it about what you were going through, even though what you were going through was real and significant. I know you folded your napkin when you were done. I know you've been working service for 7 years, and you're good at it, and you're applying to places that should be lucky to have you, and they're putting you through bureaucratic nonsense instead." A pause. "And I know Emma liked you, which is, she's a good judge. Better than me, actually." "Better than you at what?" "People," he said. "She's significantly better than me at people." Lily looked at her notepad. Then she looked at the window. Then she looked at neither of those things, just the middle distance of a person making a decision. "Okay," she said. "Okay what?" "Make the call, if you want to. I'm not going to turn down a legitimate lead because of—" She thought about how to finish that, "pride that I can't afford right now. That's not a comfortable thing to say." "No," she said, "it's not." Another pause. This one different from the others. Less the silence of thinking and more the silence of two people adjusting to something. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "You've already called me at 7 p.m. on a Friday from a number I didn't recognize and found my information through a network of hospitality industry contacts. Might as well ask. Is everything... Are you all right? Not generically. Actually." She thought about the certified letter, the 9 days of groceries, the column of numbers that kept arriving at the same answer. "I'm handling it," she said. That wasn't the question. She pressed her lips together. "No," she said after a moment. "Not entirely, but I've been in tighter spots and I've gotten through them, and I'll get through this one." "How tight?" he asked. Not intrusively, the way someone asked who wanted to know the actual size of the problem, not to absorb it, but to understand its shape. "Tight enough that I stopped buying coffee out 3 weeks ago." She paused. "Then I bought coffee grounds today, which felt like an event." I'm sorry. Don't be. It's circumstances. I'm not in danger. I'm just," she exhaled, "in a bad stretch." "Okay," he said. And he said it the same way she had said it earlier, not as a conclusion, but as an acknowledgement. "Okay. I hear you. That's what it is." They talked for another 20 minutes after that. She wasn't sure how. The conversation moved from the Harlow contact to a hotel Lily had worked at years ago, which turned out to be a property that Adrian's firm had developed in partnership with another group, which neither of them had known, and which produced the particular small world surprise of discovering an accidental connection. He asked about Seattle. She told him more about the fish market, about the woman who ran the counter there who was 73 and had the best knife skills and the least patience for complaints Lily had ever witnessed in a service setting. He asked what Pacific Northwest rain actually smelled like, specifically. She thought about it for a real moment and said, like wood smoke and wet concrete and something green underneath that the East Coast version doesn't have. "I've been to Seattle twice," he said. "Both times for work. I was inside for most of it." "That's a waste of Seattle." "I know," he said. "I'm good at wasting cities." She laughed, actual, unguarded, the kind she hadn't expected. He said goodnight at 7:30. He said he would call the Harlow contact on Monday. She said thank you in the straightforward way she'd learned was better than minimizing it or over-explaining her gratitude, which just made everything awkward. She put the phone down. She sat in the quiet of her apartment and thought, well, she didn't know what came after well, just well. She ate the rest of the jollof rice. She did not look at the certified letter. She slept. On Monday, Adrian made the call. He told Lily about it that evening. A brief text, professional and direct. Spoke with Genevieve Park at Harlow. She'll reach out this week. She was interested. Then, after a pause that Lily could not see but could somehow sense in the timing, Emma says hi. Lily stared at that last line for longer than was strictly necessary. She typed back, "Tell her hi back and thank you." Then she added, "Both of you." Then she deleted both of you because it felt like too much, and then she put it back because deleting it felt worse, and then she sent the message before she could change her mind again. Genevieve Park called on Wednesday morning. She was brisk and direct and clearly busy, and she asked Lily 3 questions in rapid succession: experience, availability, strongest service format, and listened to the answers without filler. She said, "Can you come in Thursday afternoon? I'll have you meet the team." "Yes," Lily said. "Absolutely." She pressed end and sat on the edge of her bed and pressed both hands flat on her thighs the way Emma had sat at the birthday table, and she breathed. She told no one, not Dara, not her mother, not Mrs. Osei. The cautious superstition of someone who has been disappointed enough times to know that hope is a thing that needs protecting until it's real. The interview was at 2 o'clock. She took the subway uptown, which she could afford because she hadn't bought lunch, and she sat in the car and watched the stations go by and thought about the question Genevieve had asked. Strongest service format. She had said fine dining with a high-volume floor, which was true. She had worked both ends of the spectrum, a wine bar downtown when she was 24 where she'd learned to slow everything down, and a 300-cover event space in her late 20s where she'd learned to move fast and keep smiling while doing it. Both were real. Both had mattered. The Harlow's restaurant space was not yet open. The hotel was still finishing its interior work, and the restaurant occupied a ground floor space behind temporary walls that were coming down in 2 weeks. Genevieve met her in the lobby, which was already done. Dark wood, warm lighting, the kind of lobby that understood the difference between impressive and intimidating. She was 40, maybe, with close-cropped gray at her temples, and the direct gaze of someone who had run operations long enough to stop finding people surprising. She showed Lily through the space. It was going to be beautiful. Lily could see that even through the construction, the bones of it, the height, the light from the south-facing windows that would hit the tables a certain way in the afternoon. "Floor staff reporting to you?" Lily asked. "To me and my assistant floor director, who hasn't been hired yet. We're building from the ground up." Genevieve looked at her. "Why?" "I want to understand the structure. Who's making service decisions day to day?" "Me, primarily." With significant floor director input, Genevieve tilted her head slightly. "Why does that matter?" "Because I've worked in places where the structure was confused and places where it wasn't, and the ones where it wasn't are the ones that ran well. I want to know I'm walking into something that's been thought through." Lily paused. "I can say that differently if it sounds like a criticism." "It doesn't," Genevieve said. "It sounds like someone who's done this long enough to care about the infrastructure." She turned and kept walking. "Come see the bar setup." The bar setup was thoughtful. Lily said so. Genevieve agreed and explained 2 decisions she'd made about the layout that were counterintuitive and correct. Lily asked a follow-up question. Genevieve answered it. It went like that for 40 minutes. Less an interview than a conversation between 2 people who knew the same world and were figuring out if they knew it in compatible ways. At the end, Genevieve said, "I'll be honest with you. Adrian Kingsley's call was one reason I agreed to meet you. It's not the reason I'm considering offering you a position." "I know," Lily said. "Do you?" "I've been in service 7 years. I can tell when someone's being polite and when someone's actually thinking. You've been thinking." Genevieve looked at her for a moment. Something that might have been approval moved across her face briefly. "Starting salary for floor staff is competitive. Senior positions, once we assess the full team, will be discussed at 90 days. Benefits start at 60. She held out her hand. "Are you interested?" Lily shook it. Her hand was steady. "Yes," she said. "I'm very interested." She walked out of the Harlow Hotel at 3:47 in the afternoon and stood on the sidewalk, and the city moved around her in all directions. And she stood there while the news settled into her. Not celebration, not yet, nothing so uncomplicated. Just the slow, private relief of a pressure beginning to release, like the first deep breath after a long time underwater. She texted Dara. "I think I just got a job." Dara sent back 17 emojis in a row. Then Lily looked at her phone and navigated to Adrian's contact. She'd saved it as Adrian K because having it in her phone at all still felt slightly unreal. And she typed, "The interview went well, I think. She offered me a position. I said yes." She hesitated. Then, "Thank you doesn't cover it, but it's what I have." He replied 8 minutes later. She was on the subway home. "I didn't get you the job. You did that." And then, after a moment, "Emma is going to want to take credit anyway." Lily read it twice. Then she put her phone in her pocket and looked at her reflection in the dark window of the subway car. Tired face, smudged mascara she'd forgotten to check, the blue interview blouse she had ironed again the night before. And she allowed herself, quietly, privately, without witnesses, to feel good. She felt good. She got home. She made coffee. She called her mother in Phoenix, who cried a little, which Lily had expected, and then asked 3 practical questions about benefits and commute time, which Lily had also expected. She talked to Mrs. Osei through the hallway door for 10 minutes, and Mrs. Osei said, "See, I told you," with the serene confidence of someone who had never actually said this but was not going to let that stop her. She paid the electric bill online. The amount left in her account afterward was still not enough for the rent, but she had a start date and a salary, which meant a paycheck, which meant she could talk to her landlord about a partial payment plan, which she had been dreading and which now seemed like something she could actually do. She called him that night. He was not pleased. She was honest, calm, and specific about the timeline. He agreed to the plan with the minimal grace of someone who has decided that some rent is better than no rent. She hung up. She sat at her kitchen table with her notepad, and she drew a line through the column of numbers, and she wrote a new column. It was better. Not solved, not yet, not close, but better. A direction. A shape to things instead of shapelessness. She put the notepad away. She thought about calling Adrian. She picked up her phone and put it down and thought, "It's late. He has Emma. He's busy. You just texted him 2 hours ago." She texted him anyway. "Starting Monday. I went home and paid the electric bill. First time in 3 weeks it's been on the right side of overdue." She almost deleted it because it was too much information, too specific, too close to the edge of what a person admitted to someone she'd met less than 2 weeks ago. She sent it anyway. He replied, "Good. Get some sleep." She stared at those 3 words. Good. Get some sleep. Not effusive, not managed, not the performed warmth of someone trying to sound a particular way. Just right. The exact right amount. She put her phone on the nightstand. She looked at the ceiling, which was still just her ceiling. Still just a ceiling in an apartment that was too expensive for her current situation and not expensive enough for the building to bother fixing the draft under the front door. Still hers. She thought about the park. She thought about Emma handing her a slice of lopsided unicorn cake with the unselfconscious certainty of someone who has identified a problem and deployed the appropriate solution. She thought about Adrian on that bench, the practiced stillness of him, the way he'd listened, the single detail of a name said out loud by accident, Sarah, the way he'd said it and the way he'd caught himself and the way she had not made it a moment because it hadn't needed to be one. She thought, these are people she knows now. That's the thing that happened. She had come to that park in rough shape on a Tuesday afternoon, and she had walked away knowing 2 people she hadn't known before. And now she was lying in her apartment at the end of a week that had turned around. And the turn had a shape to it that she could trace backward to a little girl in a yellow dress. She was not a person who believed in things being meant. Life had not given her a lot of evidence in favor of that particular framework. Things happened. Some of them were bad, some of them were good. Some of them were both at once, and the meaning, if there was meaning, was something you made yourself out of what you had, after the fact, looking back. But she was also not going to pretend that none of this was strange, that a Tuesday afternoon in a city park hadn't done something she hadn't expected. She fell asleep with the light on. Across the city, in an apartment 17 floors above a street that hummed even at midnight, Adrian Kingsley sat at his desk going through the Meridian documents for the fourth time. Because the Tribune situation was not resolving itself, and Marcus had told him that morning that the journalist calls had gotten more specific, and there were now questions about a particular amendment to the environmental assessment filed in October. He was reading. He was working. He was also, intermittently, aware of his phone on the corner of the desk. He was aware that the last message he had sent was 3 words, which was on the sparse end even for him, and that good, get some sleep was fine. It was fine. It was the right amount. She hadn't texted back, which meant she'd gone to sleep, which was good, which he had suggested. He read a paragraph about storm drainage capacity. He read it again. He put his pen down. He thought about Lily Harper's voice on the phone, the dry edge of it, the particular way she paused before answering questions that deserved real answers instead of reflex ones. He thought about what she'd said about pride she couldn't afford, which was one of the more honest things anyone had said to him in a professional context in recent memory, and it hadn't been professional exactly, but it had that quality, the willingness to call the thing what it was instead of dressing it up. He thought about Emma, who had asked about her again this morning. Emma asked methodically, with the patience of someone conducting an ongoing inquiry. "Have you talked to her today? How is she? Did she get a job?" And Adrian had answered as much as he could, and Emma had listened, and then she had said, "She's nice," again, with the same finality, as though this settled something that he had perhaps been questioning. He had not been questioning it. He also had not been entirely sure what he was doing, which was a disorienting state for a person accustomed to having a clear read on situations. He picked up his phone. He looked at the last message, her message, the one about the electric bill, which was a small and unguarded thing to share, and which she had shared it anyway. He thought about the fact that she had. He set his phone down. He went back to the drainage capacity report. He read 4 more pages. He went to bed at 12:40 and lay in the too large bedroom and stared at the ceiling and thought about nothing in particular, which was unusual, and which he had not done in a very long time without assistance from exhaustion or insomnia medication. It was not unpleasant. He turned over. He slept. The week after that, Lily started at the Harlow. The restaurant wasn't open yet, so the first days were orientation. The building, the team, the systems Genevieve had built from the ground up, with the particular organized intensity of someone who had seen too many bad openings to leave anything to chance. The floor staff were 7 people, including Lily, ranging from 22 to 51. The 51-year-old was a man named Gus, who had 30 years in hospitality and the easy authority of someone who no longer had anything to prove to anyone. The 22-year-old was a woman named Bex, who was working her first restaurant floor job after 2 years of catering events, and was clearly terrified in the bright, forward-leaning way of someone who is terrified but refuses to let it stop them. Lily liked them immediately, both of them. She texted Adrian on Thursday of that first week. "The team is good. My floor director is a man named Gus, who has been doing this since before I was born and makes me feel simultaneously competent and humbled, which is probably exactly right." He replied, "That sounds like the best kind of mentor." She typed back, "He's not technically my mentor, he's my colleague. Same thing sometimes." She thought about that. Then, fair. They texted like that over those weeks. Not constantly, not with any particular frequency. Twice a week, sometimes 3 times. Usually in the evenings, usually after 9 when Emma was asleep and Adrian was in his study, and Lily was done with whatever the day had been. Nothing long, nothing that required a response, but that got one anyway. Small things. A funny thing that had happened at work. A question about something. The ongoing saga of whether the Harlow's kitchen would be ready in time for the soft opening. It was touch and go. There was a situation involving the hood venting that Lily described in increasingly dramatic terms because Genevieve was genuinely in a battle of wills with the contractor, and it had all the structure of a slow-moving conflict with high stakes and deeply entrenched positions. Adrian, once, texted at 10:45. "Marcus almost quit today." Lily, "What happened?" Adrian, I changed the agenda for Thursday's meeting at 9 p.m. on Wednesday without telling him. Lily, was it a significant change? Adrian, it restructured the entire meeting. Lily, Adrian, I know. Lily, you have to tell Marcus things. Adrian, he recovered, he's fine, he's very professional. Lily, he recovered because he's very professional. That's not the same as it being okay. A pause longer than usual. Then, noted. She laughed at her phone, genuinely, the same ungraceful, unguarded laugh from the park bench. Then she thought she was laughing at her phone at 10:45 on a Wednesday night because a man had sent her a text about his chief of staff. She was aware of how this looked. She was also aware that she hadn't laughed like that at 10:45 on a Wednesday in longer than she could precisely track. Emma sent a drawing. This happened on the third week. Adrian texted to say that Emma had drawn a picture of the three of them in the park and wanted to send it to Lily, and was that okay? Lily said yes. The drawing arrived. 3 figures on a green rectangle, the park bench, with a pink square, the cake box, and what was clearly the fountain with the frogs, all 5 of them named in Emma's careful printed letters at the top. Franklin, Dot's baby, Gerald, and a 5th frog labeled New One with an arrow. Lily, there's a new frog? Adrian, Emma has decided Dot's baby is old enough for a name, but we haven't decided what yet. The 5th one is apparently a recent addition to the family. She found it last week. Lily, Gerald's? Adrian, that's the current working theory. Lily looked at the drawing for a long time. It was not a sophisticated drawing. Emma was 6, and the figures were the universal round head and stick limb figures of childhood, though the faces had individual expressions, tiny and distinct. The figure that was clearly Lily had a smile. The figure that was clearly Adrian had a more neutral expression, which Lily found oddly accurate. The figure that was Emma had a very large smile and was holding the cake box in both arms, which was also accurate. She saved it to her phone. She thought about whether that was strange. She decided she didn't care if it was strange. 4 weeks after Emma's birthday, on a Thursday morning, Lily was setting up for a Harlow service training run. Genevieve's idea, a full-floor walkthrough before the soft opening, every station occupied, simulated service, when her phone buzzed with a message from a number she didn't recognize. She glanced at it on her break. It was a news alert that someone had apparently texted her directly, which was unusual. The message contained a link and 3 words above it. Have you seen? She clicked the link. It was a celebrity gossip site. The headline, in the large, bold font of something that had been written to be clicked and shared, said, Billionaire Kingsley's Mystery. Woman. Who is the struggling waitress who caught his eye? Lily looked at the photo. It was her, and Adrian, and Emma. On the bench in Hartley Square, on a Tuesday afternoon that was now 4 weeks ago, all 3 of them mid-conversation, the pink cake box visible between them. It was a clear photo. Someone had been close with a decent camera and had caught them in an unguarded moment. Lily was looking at Emma. Adrian was looking at Lily. Emma was talking, one hand raised in a small, emphatic gesture. Lily's hand, holding her phone, went very still. She read the first paragraph. It was everything and nothing. The photo, a brief description, sources close to the Kingsley circle say, a reference to Adrian's net worth, which was stated in a number that she read twice before it processed. She sat down. She was in the break room. Gus came in for water and looked at her face and said, You okay? Fine, she said. Sorry. Yes. He looked at her for another second with the measured gaze of 30 years in service, and then he got his water and left, because he was the kind of man who knew when not to press. Lily looked at the number in the article again. She looked at the photo. She thought about the park. Just us, Emma had said, and there had been no cameras, or she hadn't seen any cameras. And the afternoon had felt private in the way that real things felt private, the way it hadn't occurred to her that any of it needed protecting because it hadn't felt like the kind of thing that needed protecting. She thought about the word struggling in the headline. Struggling waitress. She had been called worse. She had been called nothing at all, which was its own category. But there was something particular about seeing it there, public and clinical, the word that reduced 7 years and a bad month and a specific person to a single adjective above a photo she had not agreed to. She opened her messages. She typed, Adrian. Then she stopped. She looked at the photo again. In it, he was looking at her. She hadn't known that in the moment. She had been talking to Emma. She hadn't known he was looking at her like that. She wasn't sure what to do with that either. She put her phone in her pocket. She went back to the floor. She did her job, which she was good at, and she did not think about the article or the photo or the number in the second paragraph for the next 4 hours. She thought about almost nothing else. The article had 47,000 shares by the time Adrian saw it. Marcus was the one who sent it. No message, just the link, which was Marcus's particular shorthand for this is significant and requires your attention immediately. Adrian was in a car, heading back from a breakfast meeting in Midtown, and he opened the link and read the headline and looked at the photo and felt something cold move through him that was not quite anger, but was in the same neighborhood. He looked at the photo for a long time. He had not known someone was taking it. He had not been aware of anything in that park except Emma talking about the Frog family and Lily listening to her with the particular attention of someone who found children genuinely interesting rather than manageable, and the afternoon sun coming through the trees at a low angle, and the strange, specific ease of a conversation that wasn't performing anything. He had been completely unguarded. The photo showed that. He could see it in his own posture. Shoulders down, not the careful containment of a man in a public setting, but someone who had forgotten to be careful. He looked at where he was looking in the photo. He closed the link. He called Marcus. How long has it been up? Since last night, Marcus said. It went quiet initially. It picked up this morning when 2 larger outlets picked it up. Which outlets? Marcus named them. Adrian had expected both. What's the angle? The original piece is soft, mostly speculative, no negative framing, but the comment sections and the social reposts are a pause. Mixed. Some people find it charming. Others are being less charitable. About her? Primarily. Some about you. The word calculated has appeared with some frequency in reference to both of you, from different directions. Adrian looked out the car window at the city going by. Find out who took the photo, he said, and who sold it. Already working on it. The source is almost certainly someone who recognized you in the park and kept a reasonable distance. Another pause. It wasn't a setup, Adrian. It's just, you're recognizable, and someone had a phone with a good camera. I know, he said. Find them anyway. He hung up. He thought for a moment, then he opened his messages. He typed, I just saw it. I'm sorry. He stared at that for a second. I'm sorry was insufficient and also wasn't quite the thing he was trying to say. He added, I didn't know anyone was there. He sent it and put his phone face down on the seat beside him. It took her 14 minutes to reply. He knew this because he looked at his phone twice before it buzzed. I know you didn't. And then, after a shorter pause, the word struggling is doing a lot of work in that headline. He picked up the phone, typed, You can ignore it. It'll cycle through in a few days. Her reply came faster this time. Is that what you're going to do? He paused. I haven't decided yet. They called me your mystery woman. He didn't know how to respond to that in a text. He typed, Can I call you tonight? Then deleted it and typed, Are you at work? Training run. Break in 20 minutes. I'll call you then. He did. She picked up on the second ring. Tell me what you're thinking, he said. Not as a direction, sis, as a question. He had learned in 4 weeks of intermittent conversation that Lily Harper thought in straight lines, and that the best thing you could do was get out of the way of them. I'm thinking, she said, and her voice was controlled in the way it got when she was managing something internal, that I signed up for a job lead and a few text messages, not a tabloid headline with my employment history in the second paragraph. That's fair. It's not a complaint. She stopped. He heard her exhale. I work with 7 people. They're all going to see this if they haven't already. Gus probably has. Genevieve definitely has. Genevieve is a professional. She's not going to... I know she won't do anything about it. That's not the point. Another pause. The point is that I'm 3 weeks into a new job and I've just been described in a national news cycle as a struggling waitress with an unclear relationship to a billionaire I met in a park, and that is now the first thing people are going to know about me. He was quiet. She was right, and the rightness of it sat in the silence between them. I know, he said. I'm sorry. Stop apologizing for things you didn't do. I'm apologizing for the situation. The situation isn't your fault either. No, he said, but it's my life that created it. The photograph exists because someone recognized me. None of this would be in the news if I were anyone else. Lily didn't say anything immediately. He could hear her thinking. What are you going to do? She said. I don't know yet. I can have my communications team put out a statement. What kind of statement? Clarifying the nature of... He stopped. Clarifying what the photo is. Which is what? He was quiet for a moment. A father and his daughter having lunch in a park with someone they met. He paused. That's what it is. There was a beat. Is it? Lily said. Not provocatively, genuinely. As though she was checking the accuracy of the description the way she'd checked the column of numbers, looking for anything she might have missed. He didn't answer immediately. He looked out the car window. The city was fully in its afternoon stride. Delivery trucks, pedestrians, the particular noise of a Tuesday in Manhattan. Yes, he said finally. Right now, that's what it is. It wasn't nothing, that right now. Lily heard it. She let it sit. Okay, she said. Then say that. He had his communications director, a woman named Priya Sharma, who had the sharp institutional memory of someone who had managed 3 separate crises in the last 2 years, draft the statement that afternoon. It was 7 sentences, clear and flat. A private family afternoon, a chance meeting, no romantic relationship, a request for the privacy of all parties, including a child. He reviewed it twice, changed 2 words, and approved it. Priya sent it at 4 p.m. By 5, it had been covered by the same outlets that had run the original story. By 6, several accounts had used the phrase damage control prominently. By 8, someone had published a think piece about billionaires and the performance of ordinary life, which was genuinely interesting as a cultural argument and also had nothing to do with what had actually happened on that bench, which was the particular frustration of public narratives. They were about you, and they had almost nothing to do with you. Marcus texted, comment sections have shifted, mostly positive, some holdouts. Then, the Caldwell situation has also resolved, 17.5. They blinked. Adrian replied to the second message first. Emma was quiet at dinner. He noticed this the way he noticed everything about her. The way she picked at her food, which she only did when she was processing something. The way she looked at him sideways twice and then back at her plate. What? He said. Emma looked up. People are saying things about Lily, she said. He put his fork down. How do you know that? Rosie's mom said something to Mrs. Calloway. I heard. You were supposed to be doing your reading. I was doing my reading, Emma said with great dignity. I can read and hear at the same time. He looked at his daughter, who looked back at him with those gray-green eyes that had her mother's particular quality of waiting you out. Some people are saying things that aren't true, he said. That happens sometimes when something gets into the news. People say things without knowing the full story. Because they saw the picture? Yes. Emma thought about this. She moved a piece of carrot from one side of her plate to the other. Is Lily okay? She's handling it. That's what grown-ups say when they don't want to answer. He looked at her. She's having a hard day, he said. She's going to be okay. Emma nodded. She ate her carrot. Then, can we see her? We could bring cake again. He thought about it. Maybe not right now. It might not be the best timing. Why? Because there are cameras right now, photographers who follow me sometimes, and if they see us with her again, it might make things worse for her. Emma's expression moved through something complicated. She was 6. She was processing the idea that visibility could be a form of harm, which was not a simple concept for a child who had grown up with a father famous enough to create headlines. That's not fair, Emma said. No, he said. It's not. Emma was quiet for a moment. Then, with the practical resolution of someone who has identified a problem and needs to deploy the available tool, can you text her? I already talked to her today. Text her again. She said it simply. So she knows we're thinking about her. He looked at his daughter. Okay, he said. He texted Lily after Emma went to bed. Emma wanted you to know we're thinking about you. Her words, not my reframing of them. Then, how are you actually? Lily's reply came 20 minutes later. I've been better. I've also been worse. Then, tell Emma thank you. I mean it. She'll want a full report in the morning. Tell her the training run went well and Gus says my side work setup is the cleanest he's seen. She'll know what that means. She absolutely will not know what that means. Then just say I said hi. He set his phone down. He sat in his study with the Meridian documents, which were ongoing, which were developing in a direction that was now requiring the involvement of a law firm he trusted because the Tribune journalist had filed a formal information request that suggested the story was larger than one article. And he did not read them. He sat and thought. He thought about the statement his communications team had put out. No romantic relationship, factually accurate. He had approved it without hesitation. He thought about the photograph, the way he'd been looking at her. He thought about the right now he'd said on the phone that afternoon. Lily had heard it. She was the kind of person who heard that kind of thing. He was 32 years old and he had not let himself do this in 4 years. There had been one evening, 18 months ago, when Marcus had tried to set him up with a colleague's wife's sister, and Adrian had agreed to dinner because Emma had said he should try harder at being a person. And the dinner had been fine. The woman had been smart and clearly interesting, and he had driven home afterward feeling worse than he had before, which had seemed like a message he was obligated to receive. He had received it. He had not tried again. This was different. He wasn't sure how it was different, only that it was. He opened the Meridian files. He read 4 pages. He closed them again. He went to bed. The second wave of coverage came 5 days later, and it was worse. Not the mainstream outlets. They had largely moved on the way news cycles moved, immediately and completely. The second wave was the kind that traveled in a specific channel, gossip accounts, comment threads, the particular ecosystem of anonymous opinion that existed to perform certainty about people it had never met. A blogger, someone with a moderate following and the journalistic standards of a rumor, posted a piece with the headline, "The Truth About Adrian Kingsley's Convenient New Charity Case." The argument, such as it was, Lily had engineered the meeting, had targeted Adrian specifically, had played the sympathy angle to get a job at a hotel that his firm had helped finance, and was now presumably working her way towards something larger. The piece had no sources. It had screenshots of the original photo, of Lily's now visible LinkedIn profile, of the Harlow Hotel's press release announcing the restaurant's upcoming opening. It had, within 24 hours, been shared enough times to surface in search results. Lily found it the same way she'd found the original article, through someone else's text. This time it was Bex, the 22-year-old, who sent it with 3 question marks and a row of concerned emojis, and then, almost immediately, a follow-up. Ignore this? It's garbage. You don't have to respond. Lily sat with it for a while. She was on her lunch break. She was in the break room again, which had become, in the past week, the room where she received bad news. She read the piece. She read it carefully, the way she read things she was deciding how to respond to. Not for the emotion in it, but for the structure, the claim and the supporting argument, checking to see if there was anything in it that was true and that she needed to address. There wasn't. The piece was not journalism. It was a thesis in search of evidence, which was the most dangerous kind. Not because it contained facts, but because it contained a structure that looked like facts if you didn't check. The detail about the Harlow financing was real. The Kingsley Group had been a partial investor in the hotel development. She had not known this when Genevieve offered her the job. She had not known it. And if she had known it, she was not sure it would have changed her decision, because the job was real and the work was real, and Genevieve had looked at her resume and her interview and made a professional judgment that had nothing to do with Adrian. But the detail was there, real and usable, and it would be used. She put her phone face down on the table, She sat with her hands flat on her knees. She thought, I can leave. Not the job, the situation. She could stop texting. She could be polite if they ran into each other somewhere, which was unlikely given the distance between their lives, and she could close the door on all of it and let the news cycle move on, which it would, because it always did. She was not famous. She was not important. She was a person who had been in a photograph, and photographs stopped being interesting eventually. She could do that. She knew she could do that. She picked up her phone and called Adrian. He picked up on the first ring, which meant he'd seen it already. I know, he said before she spoke. Do you? Marcus flagged it an hour ago. His voice had the controlled quality of someone managing something they're angry about. It has no sources. Nothing in it is verifiable. We're looking at the legal options. Don't, she said it flatly. Lily, don't send lawyers. That makes it a bigger story. That's what he wants. She paused. Who is this person? A blogger, someone with a modest platform who runs this kind of content regularly. Another pause. He's not nothing. He's been picked up by larger outlets before. So ignore him. You're in a worse position if we ignore him. The search results don't matter to the people who actually know me. She stopped herself. That wasn't quite right either. They matter to people who Google my name, which matters for the job, which... She exhaled. I don't know. He was quiet for a moment. Genevieve called me this morning, he said. Lily went very still. What did she say? She called to tell me that she was aware of the coverage and that it would have no effect on your position at the Harlow. His voice shifted slightly. She also said, and I'm quoting, that if anyone had a problem with who she chose to hire, they could bring their problem to her directly, and she would tell them exactly what she thought of it. Lily pressed her fingers against her forehead. She didn't have to call you, she said. No, she chose to. Because she's the kind of person who knows how these things land and wanted me to be able to tell you that. A pause. She's looking out for you. I know. Lily's voice came out slightly thinner than she'd intended. She cleared it. I know she is. You're allowed to let people do that, you know. She didn't say anything. Lily, I know, she said. I know I am. And then, more quietly, I'm not good at it, letting people. She stopped. I've been handling things myself for a long time. That's not a complaint. It's just the situation I've been in. And when people offer things I can't... She stopped again. I start calculating what it costs. What does this cost? She thought about it honestly. I don't know yet, she said. He didn't fill that space. She appreciated it. There's something else, he said after a moment. She waited. There's an event next week, a development conference, investors, partners, some press. It's been on the calendar for months. The Meridian situation is going to come up there, which is its own thing, but the coverage from the past week is going to be in the room too. In the way that things are in the room without being on the agenda. He paused. I'm telling you because I may need to address it publicly. The rumors about you, about the situation. What would you say? The truth. What actually happened in that park, what you are, which is someone who accepted kindness from a 6-year-old with dignity and gave it back in kind. He paused. I want to say it clearly, on record, in a room where it matters. Lily was very quiet. That's your call, she said. It's your event, your audience. I'm telling you because it affects you. I'm not going to do it without your knowledge. She turned that over. Why does it matter to you? Professionally, you could let it go. You've already issued a statement. The cycle is moving. Because the cycle moving isn't the same as the truth being said. A pause that felt like something settling. And because my daughter wants me to do better at being a person, and I think this is part of that. She laughed, short and surprised. You're going to cite Emma as your moral compass at a business conference? I cite Emma as my moral compass in most situations. She's usually right. She's 6. Yes, but she was right about getting your number. The silence that followed that was different from the others, more aware of itself. Okay, Lily said. Say what you need to say. The Hartwell Development Conference was held at the Prescott Center, a venue Adrian had been to 40 or 50 times in various professional configurations. A glass and steel building with a 6th-floor ballroom that held 600 and a reputation for being the room where deals that mattered got confirmed or fell apart. He had closed 2 significant deals in this room. He had lost one. He had given a keynote 3 years ago that Marcus had called the best public performance of his career, which Adrian had found uncomfortable because he had not been performing. He did not usually find these rooms difficult. He found this one difficult. It was not the Meridian questions, though those were there, threaded through the evening in the way of things that needed to be addressed. The Environmental Assessment Amendment had turned out to be exactly what the Tribune suspected. A modification made at the recommendation of a subcontractor who had since been removed from the project without sufficient oversight from Adrian's team, which was a failure of process that he intended to address directly and publicly and had prepared to do so. He did not like making mistakes. He found them more useful than the alternative, which was pretending they hadn't happened. The Meridian situation he could handle. He had handled harder things. What sat differently was everything else. The photograph was in the room. Not literally, but the way a thing was in a room when everyone was aware of it and no one had said it yet. He could see it in the particular way certain people greeted him, the extra beat, the almost question, the careful avoidance of the subject that was the clearest indication of how present the subject was. He gave his opening remarks. He talked about Meridian, the mistake, the correction, the accountability measures he was implementing. He was direct. The room respected that, or at least the people in it who valued directness respected it, and those were the ones he needed. There were questions. He answered them. The formal program ended at 9. The reception portion of the evening began. Glasses of things, small plates, the particular grammar of a professional social event where important conversations happened in the margins, where what actually needed to be decided got decided. He made his rounds. He shook hands. He talked to the people he needed to talk to about the things those conversations required. He was good at this. He had said so to Lily, "I'm good at meetings," which I consider one of the more unfortunate facts about myself. And it was true in rooms like this the same way it was true in boardrooms. He knew how to read the current, where to push, where to listen. At 9:45, a journalist from the Financial Observer named Cole Brennan found him near the windows. Brennan was 50, well-regarded, and had the easy confidence of someone who had been in rooms like this long enough to know exactly what they were worth. "Good presentation," Brennan said. The Meridian response was, "Handled well." It needed to be direct. It was. A pause. Brennan swirled his glass. "There's something else I've been wanting to ask about. For context, not for the piece." Adrian knew what was coming. "Off the record," Adrian said. "Off the record," Brennan agreed. "The woman in the photograph," Adrian said before Brennan could frame it. "Her name is Lily Harper. She was in the park the same afternoon we were. My daughter noticed she was having a hard day and did something about it. That's the story." He looked at Brennan. "The rest of it, the blogger, the charity case framing, is a fiction that somebody built out of a photograph and a LinkedIn profile." "She works at the Harlow now." "Yes." "Kingsley Group had a development stake in the Harlow." "A partial stake. The financing closed 18 months ago. My firm has no ongoing operational relationship with the hotel." He paused. "Genevieve Park hired Lily Harper because she interviewed well and has 7 years of verified service experience. I made an introduction. The rest was Lily's." Brennan was quiet for a moment. "And the personal angle?" he said, carefully. Adrian looked at him. "She's someone my daughter likes," he said. "That's where we are." It was precise. It was also exactly true, which was its own kind of honesty. The kind that said, "This is the real edge of what I'll tell you without pretending the edge wasn't there." Brennan nodded slowly. "The blogger is garbage," he said, "just so you know my opinion." "I know. Some of the other coverage has been—" He tilted his head. "The optics question. Whether it's image management." "It's not." "I believe you." Brennan said it the way people said things they meant. "I'm telling you what's being said." "I know what's being said." Adrian looked out at the room, the 140 people in it, the conversations, the glasses catching light. "I know what they think." He excused himself from Brennan at 10. He found Marcus near the bar, working his way through a sparkling water with the focused efficiency of a man who had been managing a difficult evening and had almost reached the other side of it. "How are we doing?" Adrian said. "Meridian questions are contained. The partners from Whitmore seem satisfied with your accounting. Brennan was civil?" "Civil and useful." Marcus nodded. He looked at his phone. "The main event is the 11 o'clock remarks. Are you still—" "Yes." "You don't have to." "Marcus." "I know." He put his phone away. "I just want it noted that I flagged it." "Noted. It's going to generate coverage." "I know." "The personal angle will become, I know what it will become." Adrian looked at him. "I'm not doing it because it's good for my image. I'm doing it because it's true and it should be said. Those are separate things." Marcus looked at him for a moment. 37 years old, 6 years older than his employer, and there were times when the age difference felt very small, and times when it didn't feel like a difference at all. This was one of the times when Marcus looked at Adrian and seemed to be seeing something he didn't entirely have words for. "Okay," he said, 11 o'clock. At 11, the room gathered for closing remarks. Adrian stood at the front of it, 240 people by then, the evening having grown as evenings like this did, and he gave the remarks he had prepared, which covered the quarter ahead, the firm's priorities, the meridian corrections that were already in process. And then he said, "There's something I want to address directly, because it's been in the room all evening, and I'd rather it be said than managed." The room shifted. He felt it, the particular quality of collective attention when it sharpens. "A photograph was taken of me and my daughter 4 weeks ago in a public park. In the photograph, we were having lunch with a woman we met that afternoon. The woman's name is Lily Harper. She was having a genuinely difficult day, job loss, financial pressure, the kind of circumstances that are common and difficult and that most people have the good sense not to discuss publicly." He looked at the room. "My daughter noticed that she was struggling and did what 6-year-olds occasionally do better than the rest of us. She addressed it directly. She offered her birthday cake." There was quiet in the room, the kind that meant people were listening. Lily Harper accepted the cake with more grace than the situation required. "We had lunch together. We talked for an hour." "That's the story." He paused. "The coverage that followed has suggested a range of things. That she was calculating, that the meeting was arranged, that she has benefited from the connection in some kind of exchange." He let that sit for a beat. "None of that is true. What is true is that she never once asked me for anything, not money, not a favor, not an introduction. The introduction that came later I offered, because she is clearly competent and was being failed by a job market that was not seeing her accurately. She earned the position she's in, every part of it." He looked out at the room, at the faces. Some moved, some cautious, some already calculating what this meant for the quarter. "I'm not telling you this to manage a narrative," he said. "I'm telling you because a woman who handled a hard situation with dignity has been publicly characterized in a way that is inaccurate and unkind. And that is the kind of thing that should be corrected when someone has the standing to correct it." He paused. "I have the standing, so I'm saying it." He stepped back from the podium. The room was quiet for 2 full seconds. Then it moved. Applause, not unanimous, not thunderous, but real. The particular sound of people who have been in rooms like this long enough to recognize when someone has said something true instead of something useful. Marcus, from the back of the room, was not applauding. He was looking at his phone. Adrian could read from across the room the expression on his face, which was the expression of a man watching something develop that is either very good or very complicated or both. Turned out to be both. Lily was awake when it happened. She had a shift in the morning, and she had been trying to sleep since 10:30, lying in the dark, listening to the city, with the particular restless awareness of someone whose brain had decided that tonight was not a night for unconsciousness. She had been running logistics, tomorrow's floor setup, the table rotation Genevieve had adjusted, the new point-of-sale system they were still training on. Her phone lit up. Then again, then 3 times in a row. She picked it up. Her first thought was someone died. Her second thought, arriving immediately after, was not necessarily stop jumping. The notifications were from people she hadn't heard from in months. A former coworker from the restaurant on Delancey, a cousin in Ohio she exchanged birthday texts with. Dara sending a voice note at 11:30 p.m., which meant something significant had happened because Dara was normally asleep by 10. She played Dara's voice note. Dara's voice said, "Lily." Oh my God. "Lily, turn on your phone. Are you watching this? The Kingsley guy. He just said something at this conference and it's all over Twitter. Lily, he defended you in front of like 200 people. It's..." A pause where Dara seemed to be trying to locate words. "Lily, call me when you get this." Oh my God. Lily sat up. She went to her browser. It took her 30 seconds to find it. Already clipped, captioned, shared. Someone had recorded the remarks on a phone, shaky and not quite centered, but clear enough. She pressed play. She watched him say it. She watched him stand in front of 240 people in a room she would never have been in under any circumstances, in a part of his life that was as far from a park bench in Hartley Square as it was possible to get, and say her name, and say, "She never once asked me for anything." She said, she handled a hard situation with dignity. She watched him say, "I have the standing, so I'm saying it." She put her phone down. She picked it up again. She looked at the ceiling, the same ceiling, the one that was nothing like a 17th floor ceiling. She put the phone down and then immediately picked it up again and looked at the clip one more time. Not the whole thing, just the last 15 seconds. Just the part where he said her name, because the saying of it out loud in a room like that, her name specifically, not the mystery woman, not the charity case, was the part she couldn't quite process. He had called her Lily Harper to a room full of people. He had not managed her. He had not packaged her. He had just said who she was and what had happened and that the rest of it was wrong. She had been visible before. She had been seen. She had been photographed and described and reduced to an adjective in a headline. This was different. She picked up her phone. She typed. I watched it. She stared at the text. She typed, "You didn't have to do that." She deleted it because she'd said that already, about other things, and he had said, "I know," and done it anyway. She typed, "Thank you," and deleted that too because it didn't reach the thing she was trying to say. She typed, "You said my name." She sent it before she could think too much about what it meant. His reply came 4 minutes later. She imagined him in a car, or in the emptying conference room, or standing somewhere with his phone in the particular careful way he held it. "You have a name worth saying." She sat with that for a long time. Outside, the city was doing what it always did. Indifferent, grinding, relentless. But something in the room was different. Not the ceiling, not the certified letter-free kitchen table, not the jollof rice corner of the nightstand. Something internal. A shift in the pressure, like weather changing. She had spent a long time feeling like the space between jobs. Like the bill past due. Like the column of numbers before the line was drawn through them. She had not felt invisible exactly. She was too clear-eyed for that. But she had felt like the kind of person whose presence or absence in a situation didn't change its direction. She put her phone on the nightstand. She lay back. She thought about Emma's drawing, still saved on her phone. 5 concrete frogs, named with careful letters. 3 stick figures on a green bench. The pink square that was the birthday cake, which had started all of this. The expression on the smallest figure's face. A large smile, confident, certain. The expression of someone who has done the correct thing and knows it. She closed her eyes. She fell asleep eventually, and this time she did not count numbers. She dreamed about nothing in particular, which was the best kind of dream. The kind where your brain lets itself rest because, at least for a moment, it believes that everything that needs to be handled is being handled. And in the morning, when she woke and picked up her phone, there were 43 new notifications. And at the very top, from 3:17 a.m., a text from an unknown number that had sent one word, gold digger. She looked at it. She put it down. She made coffee. She went to work. The unknown number sent 3 more messages over the next 2 days. Lily did not respond to any of them. She screenshotted each one, sent the screenshots to Adrian with no comment, and blocked the number. A new number appeared the following morning with the same word, different spelling, same intent. She blocked that one too. Then a third. She did not tell Adrian about the third. She told herself this was practical. that he had enough of his own situation to manage, that these were the low-grade background noise of being briefly visible and they would stop when she stopped being interesting, which would be soon. She told herself this and mostly believed it during the day, when she was at the Harlow doing the work that was real and immediate and made sense. The floor was coming together. The restaurant was 8 days from soft opening, and Genevieve was running them through full-service simulations with the focused intensity of someone who considered a bad opening a personal failure. Lily was good at the work. Gus had told her so, directly, which from Gus was the equivalent of anyone else giving a standing ovation. She was less good at it in the hours between midnight and 3 a.m., when the phone lit up with things she hadn't asked for and couldn't unread. It was Bex who noticed first. They were breaking down a training setup on a Thursday afternoon, folding napkins, resetting glassware, the repetitive rhythmic work that Lily had always found oddly calming, and Bex looked at her sideways and said, "You sleeping okay?" "Fine," Lily said. "You have the face of someone who said fine a lot this week." Lily looked at her. Bex was 22 and looked it. Open face, not much guarded yet, the kind of candor that came from not having learned to be careful. It was occasionally irritating and frequently useful. "I'm getting messages," Lily said, "from people who saw the coverage." "What kind of messages?" Lily didn't answer specifically. She didn't need to. Bex's expression went flat in the way young people's expressions sometimes went when something had moved past annoying into genuinely wrong. "Are you reporting them?" "To who?" "I don't know, the police?" "Isn't that harassment?" "It's anonymous accounts on the internet sending one-word texts. It doesn't cross the legal threshold for anything." Lily set down a wine glass precisely. "It's just unpleasant." "It's more than unpleasant." "Yes," Lily said. "It is." She picked up the next glass. "But it's not new. Women in service get talked about. I've been talked about before. Usually it's just within the restaurant. This is a wider net." Bex was quiet for a moment, folding a napkin with more care than was strictly required. "Does Adrian Kingsley know?" she said. She said his name with the particular delicacy of someone who has intuited that the name means more than its professional context, but hasn't been told so directly. "He knows about some of it. Should he know about the rest?" Lily thought about this. The honest answer was probably yes. The answer she gave was, he has his own situation. Bex looked at her in the way that 22-year-olds sometimes looked at older people who were being obtuse about something obvious. She didn't say anything. She went back to folding. That evening, Lily was on the subway home when her phone rang. Not a text, an actual call. Adrian's name on the screen. She picked up. "I got a call from Marcus today," he said. No preamble. "About what?" "He has a contact who monitors this kind of online activity. Around my name, around the firm, around associated individuals." A pause. "There's a thread on one of the forums. I'm not going to describe the content except to say that it's been active for 4 days, and it's about you, and it's not—" He stopped. "It's not okay." Lily looked at the subway window, her reflection in the dark glass tired and composed. "I know," she said. "You know. I've been getting messages. Some of it's connected, probably." A silence. The kind that had weight in it. "How long?" he said. "The morning after the conference." Another silence. Longer. "You didn't tell me. You had the conference fallout, the Meridian situation. Marcus almost actually quit. Lily." He said her name the same way he'd said it in front of 240 people. Not as a deflection or a pivot, just your name, and I mean it. "You could have told me." "I know." "Why didn't you?" She looked at her reflection. She thought about how to say it accurately, which was the only way she knew how to say things that mattered. "Because I didn't want to become a problem you were managing," she said. "That's not—" She exhaled. "That's not what I want this to be." The silence was different now. She could hear him in it. "What do you want it to be?" he said. Carefully. The way he'd said right now weeks ago, with the precision of someone who understood that the words were carrying more than their surface weight. She looked at the window. The train moved through the dark tunnel. "I'm not sure yet," she said honestly. He didn't push it. Marcus is going to do what he can about the thread. It may not come down, but the account activity can be flagged through the platform. A pause. And I want you to send me everything, the messages, the screenshots, all of it. Adrian, all of it. Please. The please was quiet. It was the word of someone who was not accustomed to asking and was doing it anyway. Okay, she said. She sent them that night. 14 screenshots over 5 weeks, which laid out together was worse than she'd let herself think about each one individually. She sent them and then put her phone face down and made tea she didn't particularly want and sat at her kitchen table and waited for the feeling of having handed something over to settle. It did, eventually. Slowly. His response came an hour later. Thank you for sending these. And then, I'm sorry you've been dealing with this alone. She typed back, I've been dealing with things alone for a while. I'm used to it. His reply? That doesn't make it okay. She looked at those 5 words for a long time. She typed, no. And then, it doesn't. She put the phone down. She drank her tea, which had gone lukewarm. She thought about the version of herself that had sat on a park bench 6 weeks ago, folding a paper napkin, calculating whether she could afford the bus home, and had looked up to find a little girl in a yellow dress walking toward her with a cake box and the absolute confidence of someone who had already decided that the distance between them was not a problem. She thought about how she had almost said no to the cake. The soft opening of the Harlow restaurant was on a Friday evening, 3 weeks into November, and it was messy in the way that soft openings were always messy and good in the ways that mattered. The kitchen sent out 1 course early during the third table's service, which created a timing issue that Lily and Gus triangulated around without the table knowing anything had happened. The point-of-sale system froze twice. A party of 6 arrived without a reservation, and Lily managed them to a revised configuration that worked, which Genevieve clocked from across the room with a small nod that Lily had come to understand was the equivalent of high praise. Afterward, the staff stood in the empty dining room, and Genevieve looked around at all of them with the expression of someone who had gotten what she came for. Not bad, she said. Gus said, high praise. Beck said, I thought the POS system was going to make me cry. You handled it, Genevieve said. All of you did. She looked at Lily briefly, the specific look of one professional to another that said, you specifically were good. Then she said, go home. Be here at 10 tomorrow. They went home. Lily took the subway and stood because there were no seats, and held the pole and felt the particular clean exhaustion of a hard shift well done, which was different from every other kind of exhaustion. Not the draining kind, but the kind that came from spending yourself on something real. She texted Adrian, soft opening. We survived. He replied in 4 minutes. Only surviving or actually good? Actually good. Gus said my floor management was solid, which from Gus means I might be competent. I've been saying you're competent for weeks. You also haven't seen me work. I saw you manage my daughter and a concrete frog family simultaneously. I stand by my assessment. She smiled at her phone on the subway, which was fine, which was the kind of thing people did on subways, and nobody was watching anyway. 3 days after the soft opening, Adrian called in the morning and said, Can I ask you something? You've asked me things before without warning me first. This is different. She was getting ready for work. She put him on speaker and set the phone on the bathroom shelf. Ask. Emma's school has a thing in 2 weeks. A Saturday event. Outdoor fair, families, that kind of thing. She's been asking about you. A pause. She wants to know if you'd come. Lily looked at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, slightly undone, mid-routine, not ready for this particular question at 8:15 on a Tuesday. She's 6, she said. She doesn't fully understand. She understands more than we give her credit for, he said. She also knows that I talked to you and that she'd like to see you. A pause. I would also like to see you. In a non-photographed, non-publicly commented upon context. Lily picked up her mascara. Put it down. That's going to be complicated, she said, if there are photographers. The school event is private. The venue has a policy about it. And I've been more careful about the route, about who knows where I'm going to be. He said this with the slight stiffness of someone admitting to a precaution they wish they didn't need to take. "You've been planning your movements around the coverage," she said, "around protecting Emma, primarily. The rest of it is adjacent." She thought about it. She thought about Emma's drawing still saved on her phone, the large smile, the confident stick figure with its arms out. "Okay," she said. "Yeah?" "Yeah." She picked up the mascara again. "But if there are cameras, we leave." "Agreed. And Emma doesn't get to use it as leverage for anything. I know how she operates." A sound that was clearly him suppressing a laugh. "She absolutely will try. Tell her I know she'll try. That will make her respect you more." "Good," Lily said. "Tell her that too." The school fair was on a Saturday in mid-November, held in the grounds of Emma's school, which was on the Upper West Side in a building with a large yard that had been transformed with the particular ambitious energy of a parent committee that had taken the assignment very seriously. There were game booths, a bake sale, a face-painting station, and what appeared to be an entire mini petting zoo in the far corner that Emma made a beeline for within 30 seconds of arrival. Lily met them at the gate. She had spent approximately no time deciding what to wear, which meant she had spent 45 minutes on it before concluding that the whole exercise was beside the point and wearing jeans and a brown jacket she liked, and calling it decided. She arrived 2 minutes before they did and stood near the gate with her hands in her pockets. She saw Emma first. Emma was scanning the crowd with the systematic purpose of someone conducting a search operation, and the moment she saw Lily, her face went to the specific joy of a child who has been hoping for something and has now received it. She ran. She didn't hug Lily. She stopped short, which suggested some prior coaching, and bounced slightly on her toes instead, which was its own kind of hug. "You came," Emma said. "I said I would." "Daddy said you might. He said probably, but sometimes probably means probably not." "Not this time," Lily said. Emma looked at her for a moment with those gray-green eyes. "You look tired," she said. "Emma?" Adrian said, arriving behind her. "What?" "She does, but also good," Emma added, with the diplomatic addendum of someone who has been taught the concept of but also. She looked at Lily. "You look tired, but good." "Thank you," Lily said. "You look like someone who has already spotted the petting zoo." Emma grabbed her hand and turned and began walking toward it. Lily looked back at Adrian over her shoulder. He was watching this with an expression she hadn't seen on him before, something open, something that hadn't been managed down. He caught her eye. "Hi," he said. "Hi," she said. They had been talking for 6 weeks. This was the second time she had seen him in person. It was different, in person. He was taller than she'd remembered, or maybe she'd just gotten used to his voice as the primary register of him, and standing 3 feet away in daylight, in a schoolyard with children running past, he was both familiar and slightly new. "Emma's going to want to adopt something from that petting zoo," he said, falling into step beside her. "What's your limit?" "She knows no live animals. She has been pushing for a hamster since Rosie got one." "Rosie's hamster is named Tornado." He looked at her. "She told you about Tornado?" "Extensively." "She doesn't stop talking about Tornado," he said. "I have a full behavioral profile of a hamster I have never met." "Is it a good behavioral profile?" "Tornado is, according to Emma, very brave, but not very smart, which Emma finds relatable." Lily looked at him. "She said that?" she said. "Those words, yes." "Your daughter has incredible self-awareness." "She does," he agreed. "It's one of her more disarming qualities." They stood at the petting zoo fence. Emma was inside it, crouching in front of a rabbit with the focused intensity of someone conducting a formal introduction. The rabbit sat with the philosophical patience of an animal that had attended many school fairs. "How are you?" Adrian said. "Not how are you as preamble. The real version." Lily watched Emma and the rabbit. "The messages have slowed down," she said. "Whatever Marcus did helped. I've had 3 this week instead of—" She stopped. "It's better." "I know. Marcus told me." A pause. "I meant more broadly." She thought about more broadly. I'm Adjusting, she said. To all of it. The job is good. The Harlow is good. Genevieve is difficult in the exact ways a boss should be difficult. She paused. The rest of it is... She looked at the fence, at Emma, at the rabbit, at the way the November light was doing something specific to the color of the yard. I don't know how to be in this. Whatever this is, I'm not... She stopped, reorganized. My life before the park was very narrow, which sounds pathetic but wasn't. It was just what it was. Job, apartment, budget, repeat. I knew how that worked. The edges of it were clear. And now the edges are less clear, he said. Yes. Is that bad? She turned and looked at him. He was watching her directly, not managing the conversation toward a particular destination, just asking. I don't know yet, she said. Same answer as before. Different question. He nodded. He looked back at Emma. I've been in a narrow life too, he said. Not the same kind, but Emma, the firm, the particular routine of a person who decided to stop having a life that extended past those two things. He paused. I told myself it was for her, that it was simpler that way, better, that she needed the consistency and I needed to be available. He was quiet for a moment. Some of that was true. And the rest of it? The rest of it was that expanding required things I wasn't sure I had anymore. He said it plainly, not making it dramatic, the way he said things that were true and therefore didn't need decoration. Energy, risk, the willingness to be wrong about things. Lily was quiet. Emma says you're not good at people, she said. Emma is generous. What she means is that I'm very good at rooms full of people and not especially good at actual ones. You've been pretty good at actual me. He looked at her. Something shifted slightly in his face. Not a smile exactly, but the territory adjacent to one. You make it easier, he said. You don't... He thought about it. You don't require management. Most people require some degree of management. You just say the thing. Is that good? It's very good, he said. It's also occasionally terrifying. Because you can't read me ahead of time. Because I can't read you ahead of time, he confirmed. I'm used to knowing how conversations will go before they happen. That sounds exhausting. It is, actually. He said it like he'd only recently recognized this. Yes. Emma had moved from the rabbit to a goat, which she was introducing herself to with the same formal seriousness. The goat head-butted her gently, and Emma burst into laughter, unguarded, full body, the laugh of a child who finds something genuinely wonderful. Both adults watched. She laughs like her mother, Adrian said. He said it quietly, not catching himself this time, just saying it. Lily didn't make it a moment. Tell me about her, she said. Same way she'd said it on the bench, making space, not requiring it to be filled. He was quiet for long enough that she thought he wouldn't. Then, she was practical, like I said. She had a very low tolerance for things that weren't real. She could tell within 5 minutes of meeting someone whether they were performing or actually there, and she didn't have much patience for the performing. He paused. She was also funnier than I was, which she knew, and funnier than she let on in professional settings, which I always thought was a waste. Another pause. She got sick when Emma was 18 months old. It moved fast. That's... He stopped. It moved fast. You don't have to... I know. He was looking at Emma, who had moved on to a small sheep. I want to. That's different. He exhaled slowly. I spent about 2 years after being a very functional person who was also completely hollowed out, which probably doesn't surprise you. No, she said. I was good at the work. I was good with Emma. Everything that was in my lane, I was good at. Everything else, he made a small gesture. I just closed the doors. And now? He looked at her. Not a sideways glance, directly. Now, some of the doors are open again, he said, and I don't entirely know what to do about that, which I think you know. I do, she said. They stood at the petting zoo fence while Emma conducted diplomatic relations with the livestock, and the November air was cold but clear, and the school fair moved around them in all directions, and neither of them said anything else for a while because nothing else needed to be said right at that moment. Then Emma appeared at the fence. "The goat's name is Bernard," she announced. "I asked." "Is he good?" Lily asked. "He's excellent." She looked between them. "Can we get food? I want the thing with the powdered sugar." "That's a funnel cake," Lily said. Emma turned to her with sudden, intense interest. "You know what it's called? I've worked food service for 7 years. I know what most things are called. Can you make one?" "Probably." Emma turned to Adrian with an expression that said, "This person is valuable and I hope you're paying attention." Then back to Lily. "Will you come with us to get one?" "I'm already here," Lily said. "I think that implies I'll go where you go." Emma considered this logic, found it satisfactory, and turned and walked toward the bake sale booth with the absolute certainty of someone who has established the necessary coalition and is now executing the plan. Adrian and Lily followed, which felt easy, not frictionless, which would have been artificial, just easy in the way of things that have found their natural configuration. They spent 3 hours at the fair. Emma got powdered sugar on her jacket within 4 minutes of the funnel cake, which she and Lily discussed was the correct outcome of a funnel cake. They did 3 game booths. Lily turned out to be unexpectedly accurate at the ring toss, which Adrian found genuinely surprising. And she explained that she'd worked a summer carnival in her early 20s and had learned from the booth operator that the trick was in the wrist release, not the arc. "That's essentially cheating," Adrian said. "That's essentially skill," Lily said. Emma got a stuffed elephant from the ring toss and named it immediately. Regent. Adrian did not ask why Regent. Emma explained that Regent was a dignified name and that the elephant had a dignified face. Lily agreed that Regent seemed right. There were no photographers. The afternoon existed without documentation, which meant it was only in their memories afterward, only the actual texture of it, the cold air and the powdered sugar, and Emma's laugh, and the moment when Adrian said something about the ring toss that made Lily snort, actually snort, which was an undignified sound and which she did not bother being embarrassed about. He walked her to the subway afterward. Emma had been collected by Mrs. Calloway, who had appeared at 4 with the efficiency of a person who had been doing this for years. Emma hugged Lily. A real hug this time, arms around her waist, the solid, uninhibited hug of a child who has decided someone belongs in the circle, and then released her and went to Mrs. Calloway and turned back once to wave. Lily waved back. She and Adrian stood at the subway entrance. The street was busy and cold. He had his hands in his coat pockets. "Thank you for coming," he said. "Emma would have been disappointed if I hadn't." "Emma wasn't the only one," he said. She looked at him. His face did the thing it did. Not giving itself away quickly, but giving itself away eventually, if you were paying attention. "Adrian," she said, not as a preamble, just saying his name. "I know," he said. I'm not trying to make this into something it's not ready to be. I just wanted to say it." She thought about the closed doors. She thought about the certified letter on her kitchen table, which was paid now, 2.5 months later. She thought about the way he'd said right now on the phone, and she'd heard the space around it. "I'm still figuring out how to have a life with actual edges again," she said. "Instead of just," she gestured vaguely, "logistics." "I know." "That's not a no," she said. "It's a, I know what it is," he said. And he said it with the understanding of someone who had also been in that place, in the place where the word you needed was not no, but not yet. And the difference between those things was everything. "Take your time." She went down the subway stairs. She didn't look back because looking back would have been its own kind of statement, and she wasn't ready to make it. She got on the train. She found a seat this time. She looked at her phone. She had a text from Dara. "Don't forget we have brunch Sunday." She had a text from her mother in Phoenix that said, "Called the restaurant today. They said you were off. Was just checking in. Call me sometime, sweetheart." She had a work notification from Genevieve about next week's reservation system. She had no new messages from unknown numbers. She put her phone away. She thought about the hug. The solid, straightforward weight of Emma's arms around her waist, the complete absence of conditions in it. She thought about Adrian's face at the petting zoo fence, saying, "Some of the doors are open again." She thought about the funnel cake, and Regent the elephant, and the ring toss, and the powdered sugar, and the 3 hours that had existed without being documented or interpreted or turned into something it wasn't. She thought, these are people she knows now, not through a news cycle or a photograph or an introduction that came with strings. She knew them because Emma had walked across a park with a birthday cake, and because Lily had said yes instead of no, and because the afternoon had been real enough to follow her home. She thought about what Adrian had said. You have a name worth saying. She looked at the subway window, her reflection, same face, same woman who had sat on a park bench in rough shape on a Tuesday and folded a paper napkin with careful hands. Not the same situation. She looked at herself for a while, the way you looked at yourself when you were trying to see clearly rather than see what you expected. She looked okay. Not fixed. She was clear-eyed enough to know that you didn't get fixed, that circumstances improved and shifted, and that some things left marks that didn't fully go away. But she looked like someone who was inside a life that was moving in a direction. Not just the narrow corridor of logistics, something with more dimension. She got off at her stop. She walked home. She called her mother from the kitchen while she made dinner, and her mother talked for 20 minutes about Phoenix and her neighbor's dog and a documentary she'd seen, and Lily listened and made pasta and felt the particular uncomplicated warmth of a person who loves you exactly as much when you're struggling as when you're not. How are you doing? Her mother asked. Really? Lily stirred the pasta. I went to a school fair today, she said. A pause. Whose school? A friend's daughter. A friend, her mother said, in the tone of a woman who has known her daughter for 30 years and is aware of the precise weight being put on that word. A friend, Lily confirmed. Her mother said. Don't. I'm not doing anything. You're about to. I'm just saying, Mum. A pause. Was it nice? The fair? Lily looked at her kitchen, the pasta pot, the window with the draft she'd stuffed with a washcloth, the nightstand in the other room where the paper napkin wasn't anymore. She'd moved it to a drawer at some point, which was either more or less meaningful than leaving it out. She hadn't decided. Yeah, she said. It was really nice. Good, her mother said, simply, the way her mother said things that were the actual point. Good, sweetheart. Lily ate her pasta at the kitchen table without the notepad. She thought about tomorrow's shift and the reservation system and Gus and Bex and the way the light came through the Harlow's south-facing windows at 4 in the afternoon. She thought about the soft opening and the kitchen timing error and the party of 6 she'd managed to a revised configuration. She thought about work in the way you thought about something that was genuinely yours, not just a mechanism for survival, but the actual substance of something you were good at. She thought about the fair. She thought about not looking back at the subway stairs and how that had been a decision and what it meant that she'd made it and what it might mean to make a different one eventually. She washed her bowl. She turned off the kitchen light. Her phone buzzed. She picked it up. Adrian. Emma says Regent needs a friend. She wants to go back to the ring toss. Lily stared at this. She typed back. Tell her Regent is from a dignified line and probably prefers his own company. Adrian. She says that's what sad elephants say. Lily sat down on the edge of her bed. She laughed, real, unguarded, the ungraceful version that she'd stopped being embarrassed about. She typed, Tell her I'll think about it. She put her phone on the nightstand. She lay back. The ceiling was still just a ceiling. She looked at it for a while, not calculating anything, not running numbers, just looking at it the way you looked at something familiar when you were starting to see it differently. Same ceiling, different vantage point, and the difference was not in the ceiling. Outside, the city hummed. She slept well, and in the morning she did not find any messages from unknown numbers. Not one. December arrived the way it always did in Manhattan. Abruptly, without apology, the temperature dropping 10 degrees in a single afternoon, and the city adjusting in the way it always adjusted, which was not at all, just continuing at full speed in heavier coats. Lily noticed it on a Tuesday morning, her second month at the Harlow, walking from the subway to the hotel entrance with her collar up and her hands shoved deep in her jacket pockets. The restaurant had been open 3 weeks. The reviews were early and mostly good. One food blogger had described the room as intimate without being precious, which Genevieve had printed out and taped to the break room wall with no comment, which was the equivalent of a standing ovation. Reservations were booking 2 weeks out. The rhythm of the floor had settled into something real, something that functioned the way a good floor functioned when the right people were in the right positions. Lily had found her position. She knew this the way you knew things that had stopped requiring effort to maintain. It was just there, solid, hers. She pushed through the hotel's side entrance and thought, 6 weeks ago, she had been calculating whether she could afford bus fare. She didn't track it as a victory. It didn't feel like winning so much as arriving. The difference between a destination you reach after a long drive and a fight you win. One leaves you tired and intact. The other leaves you with something to prove. She wasn't trying to prove anything anymore. That was the difference she kept returning to. The day was a double. Lunch and dinner service, the kind of shift that ran 11 to 11 and left her with the particular hollow energy of someone who has been on for 12 hours and needs approximately 2 hours of complete silence before sleeping. She had learned to protect the hour between getting home and going to bed. Tea, sometimes a bath, whatever was on the kitchen radio. No phone for the last 30 minutes. She had started doing this 6 weeks ago when she'd realized that the last thing she saw before sleeping was shaping what she woke up carrying, and she'd rather wake up carrying nothing than wake up carrying a stranger's opinion of her. Small adjustments. They accumulated. She was halfway through the lunch service, managing a table of 4 who were celebrating something and hadn't told her what, when her phone buzzed in her apron, once, which was the signal she'd set for Adrian versus 2 buzzes for anyone else, a system she'd implemented without quite consciously deciding to and had noticed only after the fact. She didn't check it until her break. Emma has a question. Brace yourself. Lily smiled at her phone. She typed back, "Should I be seated?" "Probably. What's the question?" "She wants to know if you'll come for Christmas." Lily looked at the words. She read them twice. She put the phone down, face up, and looked at the break room ceiling, which was a different ceiling from hers but was doing the same job. She had known this was coming in the way you knew things before they arrived. Some combination of the school fair and the texts and the Tuesday evening 2 weeks ago when she'd had dinner at their apartment for the first time. That had been its own kind of event. Not dramatic, just new. Emma giving her a tour of the apartment with the proprietary enthusiasm of someone showing you their domain, pointing out things she considered significant. The bookshelf organized by color, Emma's decision. The kitchen windowsill where they kept a spider plant named Wallace, Emma's name, Adrian's plant, kept alive through a combination of neglect and occasional guilt watering. The framed photograph on the hallway wall that Lily had stopped in front of for a moment without meaning to, and then looked away from. And then Adrian had appeared from the kitchen with a dish towel and said quietly, "That's Sarah." And Lily had looked again, properly this time. Sarah Kingsley had been dark-haired, gray-eyed, and smiling in that photograph with the expression of someone who found something genuinely funny just off camera. The photograph was candid. Someone had caught her in a real moment, not a posed one, and whoever had taken it understood the difference. "She was beautiful," Lily had said. "She was," Adrian said. "She would have found all of this." A small gesture indicating the dinner, the evening, Lily's presence in the hallway. Very interesting. Interesting good or interesting complicated? He thought about it. Interesting like she would have had opinions, and she would have liked you, which she would have made sure I knew. Lily had looked at the photograph one more time and then moved toward the kitchen where Emma was demanding help opening the Parmesan. And the evening had continued in the way that real evenings continued. Imperfect, warm, a little loud because Emma was there, and Emma's volume setting was permanently at least a 7. After dinner, when Emma had been corralled toward her bath by Mrs. Calloway, with the mechanical inevitability of a nightly operation, Adrian and Lily had sat at the kitchen table with the remains of a wine bottle, and the particular quiet of a space after a child has vacated it. The quiet was different in this apartment than in hers. It had weight and warmth in it, the weight of a life being lived rather than the quiet of a space being occupied alone. "Thank you for coming," he'd said. "You've thanked me for things several times now. I keep coming. That should tell you something." He'd looked at her. "What should it tell me?" "That I'm not here because I'm calculating anything," she'd said. "I'm just here, because I want to be." It had been the clearest thing she'd said, possibly the clearest thing she was capable of saying at that stage. And he'd received it the same way he received true things, without performance, just taking it in. He had reached across the table and put his hand over hers. Not a gesture with a destination, just contact, just, I hear you and I'm here too. They'd sat like that for a while. The kitchen was quiet. Wallace, the spider plant, drooped companionably from the windowsill. She'd gone home at 10:30. He'd walked her to the elevator, not the subway, because the building had a doorman and a car service and she'd let him call her a car without arguing about it, which was itself a kind of progress, the choosing to accept without calculating the cost. She'd texted him from the car, "Your plant needs water." He'd texted back 40 minutes later, "Already handled." Emma noticed too. She says Wallace looked thirsty and sad, which she considers the worst combination. Smart kid. She is. She also wants a full review of dinner from your perspective tomorrow. Tell her the Parmesan was good and the garlic bread was excellent and the company was the best part. That will make her insufferable for a week. Worth it. Now, sitting in the Harlow break room with her phone face up and the text about Christmas sitting there on the screen, Lily thought about all of it. The dinner, the hallway photograph, the hand over hers, Wallace the spider plant. She thought about the accumulated weight of the past 2 months, which had not been smooth, which had not been simple, which had been real in the way that things were real when they cost you something to be in them. She thought about Christmas. She called him. He picked up in 2 rings. "She asked you directly?" Lily said. "She asked me to ask you," which she presented as delegation, but which I understand is her way of making sure the message was delivered correctly. A pause. "She doesn't fully trust my communication skills." "She's not wrong. She's frequently not wrong." He paused. "You don't have to answer now, or at all. She'll understand. I'll explain to her." "I want to come," Lily said. Quiet. "Yeah?" he said. "Yeah." She looked at her hands. "I need to call my mother first. She's in Phoenix and we have a loose standing arrangement, but she'd understand. She'll tell me to go." She stopped. "Yes. Tell Emma yes." Another quiet, softer. "She's going to have opinions about the tree," he said. "Just so you know. She's been negotiating the ornament arrangement for 3 weeks." "What's the current status of negotiations?" "She wants the star on top, but she can't reach. She's been exploring options." He paused. "I am not one of the options. She considers my taste in treetop replacement unreliable." "I'm 5'4", Lily said. "She's aware. She looked up your height. I don't know how." "Emma Kingsley did opposition research on my height." "She is thorough." Lily laughed. The break room was empty. She laughed into the empty room and felt it. The thing that laughing in an empty room felt like when you were genuinely happy, which was different from laughing in a room full of people because you were expected to. "I'll be there," she said. She called her mother that evening. Her mother said, before Lily had finished explaining, "Go, sweetheart. Be with them." And then, "Is this the man from the park?" "Mom, I'm just asking." "Yes," Lily said. Yes. Is he good to you?" Lily thought about the hand over hers at the kitchen table, the statement at the conference, the text that said, "Good, get some sleep." The first phone call. "I don't do that. Generally, think about conversations after they end," said with the careful honesty of someone being accurate rather than strategic. "Yeah," she said. "He's good to me." "Then go," her mother said, simply. "And call me on Christmas morning." "I will." And Lily. A pause. "I'm proud of you. Not for this specifically, just in general. For the past year, for all of it." Lily was quiet for a moment. "Thanks, Mom," she said. Her voice came out steadier than she'd expected. She hung up. She sat on the edge of her bed. She thought about all of it. The certified letter, the interviews, the park, the cake, the column of numbers that kept arriving at the same answer, until one day it didn't. She thought about the paper napkin she'd kept for no logical reason, and that was now in a drawer she didn't open very often. She thought about this girl she'd been 6 months ago, sitting on a park bench with nowhere to be, and the woman she was now, sitting on the edge of a bed in an apartment she could afford, with a job she was good at, with a mother on the phone who said, "I'm proud of you," and meant it. She thought, the distance between those two benches is the whole story, not a rescue story. She needed to be precise about this. Nobody had rescued her. Genevieve had hired her because she was qualified, full stop. The Harlow job was hers because she'd earned it. The rent was paid because she'd figured out a payment plan and then worked and paid it. She had not been saved from anything by anyone. What had happened was simpler and stranger and more significant than rescue. She had been seen. By a 6-year-old who couldn't calibrate the appropriate social distance, who had just walked across a park and said, "You look sad and sometimes cake helps." And that scene, that basic, uncomplicated, unstrategic recognition of her as a person who existed and mattered, had been the thing. Not the job lead, not the conference statement, not any of the concrete things. The seeing. She had needed to be seen. She had not known how badly until she was. That was the lesson, she thought, or not even a lesson, just a truth. The kind that didn't fit on a motivational poster because it was too specific and too human and too much about the particular unglamorous mechanics of how people actually got through difficult things. Not through exceptional character or hidden strength or some internal resource they'd been storing up. Through other people noticing them, through someone sitting down on the bench instead of walking past. She'd been the person on the bench for a long time. She had not thought about who she might be on the other side of it, whether she could be the one who walked across. She put her phone down. She made tea. She thought about that. Christmas Eve arrived with light snow, the kind that didn't stick but made the city look like it was trying. Lily came at 3 with 2 shopping bags, a bottle of wine, a small potted thing for Wallace's windowsill company, a succulent she'd found at the farmer's market and named privately Wallace Jr., which she planned to reveal only if Emma asked, which Emma would, and a wrapped box under her arm that had taken her 4 days to decide on. Emma met her at the elevator. She had clearly been waiting. She was in her Christmas pajamas already, red and green plaid, with her hair in 2 uneven pigtails that suggested she'd done them herself and refused assistance. "You brought a plant," Emma said, looking at the shopping bag. "For Wallace. Company." Emma's face moved through delight. "What's its name?" "What do you want it to be?" Emma thought about this for exactly 3 seconds. "Penelope." "Penelope's perfect," Lily said. Emma took the plant very carefully in both hands and walked it to the kitchen windowsill and introduced it to Wallace with the formal seriousness of someone managing a diplomatic introduction. Lily watched her and thought, this child, this absolute specific child. Adrian was in the kitchen doing something to a pan that involved concentration and a recipe card propped against the backsplash. He was wearing a dark sweater and had, she noticed, flour somewhere near his left ear that he was clearly unaware of. "You cook?" she said. He looked up. "I attempt. Emma mandated a specific Christmas Eve dinner and Mrs. Calloway is with her family until tomorrow, so—" He gestured at the recipe card. Lily put her bags down. She came and looked at the recipe card. It was handwritten, the handwriting neat and slightly formal. Not his, she thought. Then she understood whose it was. "Sarah's?" she said. He nodded. Not stiffening, not managing it. Just, yes. "She made this every Christmas Eve. I've been making it since she died with varying success. Emma grades me annually." "What's your current grade?" "Solid B+. She says the sauce needs work." "What's wrong with the sauce?" "I don't entirely know. It tastes right to me. Emma says it's close but not the same, which is—" He paused. "Accurate, probably." Lily looked at the recipe card. She looked at the pan. She said, "Can I look at what you're doing?" He stepped aside. She looked at the pan, at the recipe, at the ingredients on the counter. She had 7 years of food service experience. She had learned from cooks and chefs and line cooks and prep cooks at every level of the industry. She could see what the sauce needed. "You're reducing it too fast," she said. "The heat's too high, and there's no acid in here. The recipe calls for a splash of something, see? The measurement's worn off, but that looks like a wine notation." He looked at the recipe card with the expression of a man confronting something he'd been missing for 4 years. "I never saw that notation." "It's faded." She picked up the wine bottle she'd brought. "May I?" He handed her the pan. She turned the heat down, added a splash of the wine, and let it breathe. The smell in the kitchen changed, deepened, became the thing the recipe was reaching for. She handed the pan back. He stirred it. He was quiet for a moment. "That's it," he said. Not loudly. Just, "That's it." They were quiet together in the kitchen for a moment. Emma was in the other room performing the Penelope Wallace introduction. The snow was coming down outside the window, the light kind that didn't commit to anything. "She would have liked you," he said. "I told you that before. I want to—" He stopped. "I'm not saying it as reassurance. I'm saying it because it's true, and I think it matters." Lily looked at him. His face was open in the way it got when he'd decided to say the true thing rather than the managed thing. "It matters," she said. "I've been thinking about what you said at the dinner, that you weren't calculating anything." He set down the spoon. "I want you to know I'm not either. I don't know how to do this with any kind of strategy. I haven't done it in a long time, and I wasn't especially good at the strategic version even when I was." He looked at her. "I just know that when you leave a room, it's quieter in a way that has nothing to do with noise level." Lily stood very still. "Adrian," she said, "I know the timing is—" "I'm not objecting to the timing," she said. "I'm just—" She exhaled. "I'm just standing here being a person who doesn't know how to respond to someone being that direct without making it smaller than it is." "You don't have to respond," he said. "I wasn't asking for anything. I just wanted to say it." She looked at him. The flower near his ear, the recipe card propped against the backsplash in handwriting that wasn't his. The way he was standing in his kitchen on Christmas Eve, making a sauce that had taken him 4 years to get right, with a 6-year-old in the other room, introducing plants to each other. This was not a simple man. He was quiet and closed and very good at things that didn't require him to be open, and he had been hollowed out and had rebuilt around the hollow because that was what people did. And the rebuilding was real, but the hollow was also still there. And she knew this because she had her own version of it, and recognizing someone else's was different from being able to fix it. She didn't want to fix him. She just wanted to be in the same room. "I know," she said. "You didn't ask for anything. You never do." She moved a fraction closer. "That's the thing about you, Adrian. You offer things without conditions, and you don't ask back. And that is, it's good. It's one of the genuinely good things about you." She paused. "But you're allowed to ask." He looked at her. "Ask," she said. He was quiet for long enough that she thought he wasn't going to. Then, "Stay," he said. "Not tonight only, just—" He stopped. "I know that's larger than a Christmas Eve conversation. I know you're still—" "Yes," she said. He went still. "Yes?" he said. "Yes," she said again. And then, because she could see him trying to read the edges of it, "Not to everything, not to forever. I don't know what the shape of any of this looks like yet, and neither do you, and that's okay. But yes, I'm not going anywhere." She looked at him. "I'm done calculating the exit." He reached up and touched her face. Not a dramatic gesture, just a hand against her cheek, the particular warmth of another person's hand when you have gone a long time without it. She put her hand over his. They stood in the kitchen like that for a moment, two people who had both spent a long time being very good at being alone and were discovering that they were possibly better at this. Emma appeared in the kitchen doorway. She looked at them. She looked at the pan. She looked at them again. "Did you fix the sauce?" she said. Lily and Adrian both turned to look at her. "Yes," Lily said. Emma processed this information with great seriousness. Then, "I knew it was the acid," she said. "I told Daddy it needed something, but he didn't know what." She moved toward the counter. Can I taste it?" Adrian handed her a small spoon. Emma tasted the sauce with the focused attention of a small restaurant critic. She thought about it. "Okay," she said. "That's it. That's the right one." She put the spoon down with the satisfaction of something concluded and went back to the living room to continue managing the Wallace-Penelope introduction. Adrian and Lily stood in the kitchen. "She knew it was the acid," Lily said. "She's been saying it needs something for 3 years," he said. "I thought she just meant—" "She meant acid. She's 6. She's Emma, Lily said. He laughed, really laughed. Not the contained, careful version, but the full one. The one she'd been hearing in fragments over 2 months of phone calls and texts, and one school fair and one dinner. The one that meant he was actually there and not managing anything. She had learned to recognize it. It happened when he was surprised by something real. She filed it. The way she filed things that mattered, not in a list, just in the part of her that kept track. Dinner was the right sauce. It was the 3 of them at the kitchen table with candles, because Emma insisted on candles. And the snow outside went from not committing to actually sticking. And Emma talked about Regent and Penelope and the Gerald paternity question, which was still unresolved. And Adrian told a story about a business trip to Chicago that had gone sideways in a way that was entirely Marcus's fault and partially his own. And Lily told them about the customer at the Harlow last week who had complained that his food was too hot. Specifically, too hot, the temperature of it. And when Gus had investigated the complaint, it turned out the man simply didn't like hot food and had not considered mentioning this before ordering. Why didn't he say? Emma asked. Some people don't know how to ask for what they need, Lily said. Emma thought about this with her fork halfway to her mouth. That's sad, she said. A little bit, Lily agreed. You should always ask, Emma said. Otherwise, how does anyone know? Lily looked at Adrian across the table. He was looking back at her. That's right, Lily said. You should always ask. After dinner, the tree. Emma had been managing the ornament situation since before Lily arrived, and the negotiation was exactly what Adrian had described. Specific, multi-layered, with positions established and held. Emma had opinions about every ornament's placement, most of which were non-negotiable. She demonstrated this by explaining the reasoning behind each one, which Lily found genuinely interesting and Adrian found familiar in the way of someone who had been through this explanation before and had no objection to hearing it again. The star was last. Emma held it. She looked at the top of the tree. She looked at Lily. You're 5'4", Emma said. I am. That's tall enough. She held out the star. You should do it. Lily took the star. She stepped forward and reached up and put it on top of the tree with the particular careful placement of someone who understood that the gesture mattered. She stepped back. Emma looked at it. She looked at it for a long moment with those gray-green eyes that saw things. Good, she said. That's right. She went to the couch with the confidence of someone whose project has been successfully completed and sat down and pulled a blanket over herself and was asleep within 7 minutes because she was 6 and it was 9 p.m. and she had been operating at maximum capacity all day. Adrian carried her to bed. Lily stood in the living room with the tree lights on and the snow coming down outside the window and the city doing what it always did 17 floors below. And she felt the particular quality of that moment. The quiet after a child falls asleep. The way the room becomes its actual self when the noise level drops. She stood and looked at the tree. The star was straight. Adrian came back. He stood beside her. They looked at the tree for a while. She was going to let me do it, you know, he said. Last year. But she decided I would put it on wrong. He paused. She wasn't incorrect. You put it on wrong consistently enough that she did opposition research on my height. In my defense, there's no defense, Lily said. She made a rational decision based on available data. She really did, he agreed. She's going to be terrifying when she's 15. She's already terrifying. She's just terrifying in a very lovable direction. He looked at her. You love her, he said. Not as an accusation, not as a test, just noting something. Lily thought about lying by omission, about saying something less than the full thing. She had been doing that less lately. It was a habit she was trying to break. Yeah, she said. I do. She loves you too, he said. She decided it about 4 minutes into the petting zoo. Bernard the goat was a key turning point. Bernard was instrumental, he agreed. They stood and looked at the tree. I want to ask you something, he said. Ask? What do you want? Not from this, from everything, from your life. He looked at her. You've been in survival mode for a long time. What does it look like when you're not? No one had asked her that in so long she had to actually search for the answer. I want to be good at something, she said. Really good. not just competent. I've been thinking about the floor director position at the Harlow. Genevieve mentioned it once, the assistant floor director she hasn't filled. I think I could do it. She paused. I want an apartment without a draft under the door. I want to call my mother on a Sunday without her worrying. She looked at the tree. I want to not be the person who always has a column of numbers in her head calculating whether things add up. Are you still doing that? She thought about it honestly. Less, she said. The last few weeks, less. Good. She stopped. She was getting to the harder one. I want to stop being afraid that the good things are temporary. That's the one I'm still, she exhaled. That's the one I haven't fully worked out. He was quiet. I'm afraid of that too, he said. Differently, but the same fear underneath. He looked at the tree. Sarah got sick suddenly. She was fine, and then she wasn't, and then she was gone, and it happened so fast that I think I've been braced for fast ever since. For things disappearing without warning. A pause. Emma is the one thing I'm not afraid of losing in that way, because she's just here. She's mine. She's permanent in the way children are permanent in your life, even when they leave. But everything else, he stopped. I've been holding things lightly, so it doesn't hurt as much when they go. Lily turned to look at him. You've been holding me lightly, she said, not as an accusation, as recognition. Trying to, he said, not very successfully. She thought about the statement at the conference, the phone call at 7 p.m. on a Friday, the hand over hers at the kitchen table, the dinner, the school fair, the texts at 11 p.m. about Regent and sad elephants and the correct amount of sauce acid. That's not holding someone lightly, she said. That's holding someone and being scared about it. Yes, he said. That's probably more accurate. She turned toward him fully. He was looking at her with that open expression, the one he got when he'd decided not to manage things, and she thought, here it was. Here was the actual place they'd been approaching for 2 months, through phone calls and text messages and school fairs and Christmas Eve dinners with the right sauce. Not a dramatic arrival, just 2 people standing in front of a lit tree in a living room with snow outside, being honest with each other about the things they were afraid of. That was what real things looked like, not the version in the photograph, not the conference statement, not the tabloid headline. This, 2 imperfect people who had both taken damage and rebuilt around it, standing close enough to say, I'm scared too, and I'm here anyway. She reached up and touched his face the same way he'd touched hers in the kitchen. Just a hand, just warmth, just the specific weight of one person saying, I see you to another. He covered her hand with his. They stood there. Outside, the snow was fully committing now, the city going quieter under it the way cities went quiet under snow, which was the only time Manhattan ever really hushed, when it was covered in something that muffled everything and made the whole enormous machine take a slow breath. He kissed her. It was not a complicated kiss. It was just real, the kind that didn't need staging, that happened because it was the next true thing, and they had both been working toward true things for long enough that this was simply the next one. She kissed him back. The tree lights held. Lily thought briefly and without drama, there it is, not a conclusion, just a beginning that had been slow enough to be certain. She thought about the park. She thought about Emma's cake box in the morning light of a Tuesday afternoon, and the specific sequence of things that had led here. And she thought, the distance between a park bench and a lit Christmas tree is measurable in steps, but the actual distance is something else entirely. It's the distance between closed and open, between alone and not. She had covered it in 2 months, and also her entire adult life, and both were true simultaneously. Weeks later, in early January, the 3 of them went back to the park. It wasn't planned as anything significant. Emma wanted to check on the frogs. She had been worried about them in the cold, which Adrian had explained was not how concrete frogs worked, which Emma had listened to politely and then disregarded. The restaurant was closed on Mondays, and the city had that particular January quality of having set down all the December noise and not yet picked up anything else. They walked to Hartley Square in the afternoon. The fountain was off for winter, the frogs sitting in their dry basin looking, as Emma solemnly confirmed, fine, actually, I was right to check. There was no snow on the ground, but there was the memory of it in the cold air and in the gray that sat on everything. Emma found the bench before anyone said anything about it. She walked to it and sat down on it with the proprietary confidence of someone visiting a place they own a piece of, and looked at the empty space around her with satisfaction. "This is the bench," she told Lily. "I know," Lily said. "I was there." "This is where it started." Emma said it simply. All of it. Lily sat down beside her. Adrian sat on Emma's other side. The three of them on a bench in January, no cake box, no photographers, no headlines. Just the park doing what parks did in winter, existing quietly, waiting for something. "I didn't know," Emma said. "When I brought you the cake, I didn't know it was going to turn into all of this." He looked at Lily sideways with those gray-green eyes that were very old in a 6-year-old's face. "I just thought you looked sad." "I was," Lily said. "You were right." "Cake helps, though," Emma said. "I was right about that, too." "You were right about that, too." Emma looked at the fountain basin. She thought about something for a moment with the focused inward attention of a child working through a significant idea. "Do you think," she said carefully, "that you were supposed to be here, on this bench that day?" Lily thought about what she believed and what was true, and whether those things were the same. "I think," she said just as carefully, "that I was here, and you were here, and what we did with that was up to us." Emma thought about this. "We did good," she decided. "Yeah," Lily said, "we did pretty good." Emma leaned against Lily's arm, not dramatically, just settled against her with the easy weight of a child who has decided someone is safe. Lily looked across Emma's head at Adrian. He was watching them with an expression she recognized now, the one that wasn't managed at all, the one that was just him, actually there, not braced for anything. He reached across Emma and put his hand over Lily's on the bench. She turned her hand and held on. The city moved around them, indifferent, grinding, relentless, beautiful in the specific way that Manhattan was beautiful in January, when it was all structure and no softness and somehow honest for it. The fountain sat dry, and Gerald and Franklin and Dot's baby sat in their basin, permanent and unchanging. The whole frog family arranged exactly as Emma had always said they were. The sun was going down the way it went down in winter, fast, committed, the light thinning and the cold sharpening, and the sky doing something with pink and gray that was neither beautiful nor ugly, but just real. Lily sat on the bench where she had sat 6 months ago and felt the difference between them. The bench was the same, the park was the same, she was not. She was 30 years old and she had spent a year being very good at surviving and not much else. And she had sat down on this bench on a Tuesday in October because she had nowhere to be, and a little girl had walked across 30 feet of park and offered her a slice of birthday cake, and the world had moved the way it moved when something real happened in it. Not dramatically, not all at once, but in the particular incremental way of things that accumulate and then, one day, become undeniable. She thought about what she would tell someone, if someone asked. Not the headline version, the actual one. She would say, "Be the person who walks across the park." Not because it changes everything necessarily, not because every gesture lands or every connection holds, but because the alternative, the careful distance, the calculated assessment, the waiting until you know it's worth it, that costs more than the walk does. And some of the time, not always, but some of the time, you walk across a park and offer someone what you have, and what you have turns out to be exactly what they needed, and what they have turns out to be exactly what you didn't know you were missing. Some of the time it works out. She would say, "Let it work out." She would say, "Stop calculating the exit when the door is open." She would say, "You have a name worth saying. Say it. Let people say it. Be in the room when they do." Emma was falling asleep against her shoulder. 6 years old, and she'd been awake since 6 a.m. And it was past 4, and the cold air was doing what cold air did to small children, which was put them to sleep regardless of location. "She's out," Lily said quietly. Adrian looked. "She is," he sighed. "She's going to claim she wasn't sleeping. She'll say she was resting her eyes." Exactly. He looked at his daughter asleep against Lily's shoulder, and his face did the thing. Open, unmanaged, completely there. "Thank you," he said, For what? For being on this bench that day. He looked at her. For saying yes to the cake. Lily thought about the version of herself that had almost said no. That had been right there. The reflex, the calculation, the I shouldn't. She had been 1 second from it. I almost didn't, she said. I know. She was very convincing. She usually is. The arms getting tired line was very effective. She's been using that since she was 3. Lily smiled. She looked at the fountain. Franklin, Dot, Dot's baby, Gerald, the new one, whose name she couldn't see from here but knew. The family arranged in their basin in the cold, exactly where Emma had always said they were, permanent and named and belonging to each other. She thought, this is the shape of it. Not perfect. Nothing was perfect. Nobody was whole. Everybody had the thing they carried, the hollow they'd built around. But this, the bench, the cold, the sleeping child, the man beside her with his hand over hers, the city surrounding them, indifferent and alive. This was the shape of something worth having. She had almost walked past it. She hadn't. The sun went down. The streetlights came on, one by one, across the park. The 3 of them stayed until Emma woke up and looked around and said, with great dignity, that she had simply been resting her eyes, and then demanded to know what was for dinner, and then decided she wanted to name the new frog Barnabas, which she had been thinking about for some time. They walked home in the dark. The city hummed around them the way it always did, constant, enormous, completely itself. 3 people on a sidewalk, heading somewhere warm, and the park was empty behind them, and the bench held the shape of where they'd been, and the frogs sat in their winter basin. Franklin, Dot, Dot's baby, Gerald, and Barnabas, waiting for spring, as they always had, as they always would.